All right. Good evening. I now call the Rocklin Unified School District Board of Education regular meeting for Wednesday, May 5th, 2021 to order. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Julie Hupp,
Here.
Rick Miller, Rochelle Price, Tiffany Sathoff,
Here.
Derek Counter.
Here. I don't think, do we have, I think public comments. All right, we're good. The board will now adjourn to a closed session regarding items listed on the agenda. The board will resume an open session at 6:30. Good evening. The board will now reconvene to open session. The board previously met for closed session. No action was taken by the board in closed session. As a reminder to those watching from home, the board meeting is open and available for in-person attendance and participation in RUSD board meeting with limited seating to meet COVID-19 public health guidance. The meeting is also available to the public via live stream for public viewing. Those individuals who wish to provide verbal public comment must do so in person by attending the meeting. And those individuals who wish to provide written public comment may do so virtually through the link on the board agenda under item 2.1. Tonight we have Kaylee Hamilton from Whitney High School with us as our student board member. Kaylee, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
The commander and U.S. flag bearer for this evening's color guard is Cadet Captain Anson Richmond. The state flag is carried by Cadet Captain Kate Todd. The right guard is Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Caleb Soliza. The left guard is Cadet Captain Jackson Snyder. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Whitney High School Air Force Junior ROTC Color Guard and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guard, halt, left, heist, set, colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag Thank you. You may be seated.
Tonight, the board is representing our student board representatives for their service during the 2020-2021 school year. Alexis Manriquez for Victory High School will not be here. We already awarded her because she graduated early, so great job. Trustee Miller, you have a presentation?
Test? Yeah, great. All right. I won the lottery, so I got to talk about Jordan, which I'm pretty excited about. So Jordan, come up and let's talk about you a little bit. So I'm going to read some things because it's impressive. So I'm going to read it and then I'll say it to someone. So Jordan is the student body president at Rocklin High and a representative to the board from Rocklin High this year. Jordan is an outstanding, positive, outgoing, and empathetic young man who has left a phenomenal imprint on Rocklin High School and RUSD. Jordan is that rare student who has positively impacted a variety of areas with his leadership, skills, and positive attitude. While maintaining a 3.8 GPA, Jordan has been involved in volleyball, soccer, yearbook, student government, culminating in being elected as the ASB president at the Rocklin High School this year. Jordan has continued to learn, grow, and put his many leadership skills into action, always promoting teamwork, organization, empathy, fairness, and communication with those around him. As a student board rep, he participated in starting a Hear Our Voices movement, where he worked together with fellow students, district leaders, and the Board of Trustees on student voice and impact throughout the district. Jordan's leadership and willingness to make a big difference long-term have been appreciated. In addition, Jordan has done a great job balancing his academic workload and activities while always keeping a positive attitude. We are proud to share that he plans to attend the great University of Washington, where my son goes, so we're going to hang out together. Absolutely. As a general arts and science major in the fall, with plans to join the Foster School of Business in the future, an incredibly difficult school to get into, so good luck, that is awesome. Jordan is an outstanding young man who leaves a bold imprint on Rocklin High School and RUSD and will no doubt continue to make impacts in the world wherever the path he takes. And I will say, just on a personal note, I've known Jordan for years and I got to watch him play soccer with my son. And the thing that I loved about Jordan, I noticed Jordan before I even knew who he was, is I've never seen someone from a soccer perspective with better vision for the field, but from a human perspective with better vision for his fellow teammates. He was always the one that no matter whether it's on the bench or on the field, picked up everyone, was the first to congratulate, was the first to thank them, and the first to engage them. And that's the kind of person he is, it's the kind of human being he is, and you could see the difference he's made here on the board with us, is he's brought the voice in a way that we've never seen before of the students to the Rocklin Unified, and we deeply appreciate everything you do, and we're so excited to see what you do in the future. Thank you. Congratulations, thank you. So Jordan. You want to say something?
I just wanted to say that working alongside Kaylee, Alexis, and then the board in the district was a really good opportunity this year for me, and I've grown a lot from it. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody here. Thank you, Kaylee, for being a great president with me, even though you're from Whitney, it's okay. And it was a great overall experience, so thank you so much, you guys.
All right, come here, let's take a quick picture. Thanks, Jordan.
Thank you.
Oh, Jordan.
So I get the esteemed honor here to discuss Kaylee Hamilton. So Kaylee has been an outstanding leader on Whitney High School campus during her time at Rocklin Unified School District for the past 4 years at Whitney High School. She's been an active student leadership program over the last few years and has been instrumental in changing the work ethic of her classmates and setting the bar high for student leaders in the future. Kaylee worked with student life committees for 2 years, serving as commissioner and committee her junior year. Highlight of that success was completion of the Breaking Down program at Whitney High School, which is Breaking Down the Walls, right? It's a great program. As current ASB president at Whitney High School, Kaylee has challenged her peers to think outside the box in order to maintain a positive school culture on campus, and her leadership skills are impressive. Besides being ASB president, she's very involved in other activities on and off campus. She competed in water polo for 4 years for Whitney and played an important role in the team's success. Good job. Kaylee is the great big sister to Addie and her brother Josh. Kaylee's off to study at the University of Auburn to get a first-class education while continuing her further studies to become a nurse. Go War Eagles, right? Don't ever say Roll Tide, right? Remember that. All right. We wish Kaylee all the best in her future endeavors and are very thankful for her work as she has done here at Rocklin to positively influence those around her. She leaves quite a legacy for students to follow her in her footsteps. I will say, again, for all of us on the board, Kaylee was one of the first ones to actually have comments, to ask questions, to engage. Most of the time it was like, really, kids are pretty shy. They just, you want to kind of go with the flow. Kaylee was like, can I ask a question? Can I follow that up? And it was great. And I think that's a great thing. Jordan followed with that. So I hope that mentality and that initiative comes with every future ASB member here for the board. So thank you, Kaylee.
Okay. No, like Jordan said, it's just been an amazing opportunity meeting all of you guys and having this amazing opportunity. I could not have done it without Jordan and Alexis. It was just I met so many new people, and it definitely, I've grown from it, I've learned from it, and yeah, I'm just excited to see what happens in the future now. So thank you.
Any board comments?
I'm happy to echo my thank you. You guys are awesome, and you've left a really big legacy for others to follow, and we just so appreciate your efforts this year and your involvement and the late night phone calls. I really do appreciate the interaction and the feedback. You guys have been amazing, so thank you.
Yes, my first year on the board, I came into these amazing student leaders. I had nothing to compare it to, but was incredibly impressed with their poise and their dignity and their respect, and especially, and I said this before, when they disagreed with us. I was so impressed with the way they handled that and the way they made their voices heard, and they made actual changes in the way things are run. And I hope that everyone who follows behind you can do just as great of a job as you two have done.
You know, I echo the appreciation of the new standard that you have set for ASB students when they sit up here. I really did appreciate our times each month to get to hear, and there were many ideas we kicked your way that you were kind enough to say, thank you, but that may not work for our students. And I appreciated that. And so I'm looking forward to next year as well and hearing all the great things that you're doing, trailblazing out at your new campuses. But I also appreciate that last month you said, hey, how do we hand this baton off well? You weren't just thinking about senioritis ending your season well, but you were looking at how you can set up future leaders well. And so I appreciate that. Thank you for the changes you brought to RUSD. I know you're going to go conquer the world out there, and we're going to be back here cheering you on.
Thank you. Are there any public comments tonight for the student? All right. So thank you, guys. Thank you, Jordan. You got to stick around. You can't take off right away. But family-wise, Jordan, if you need to move along, get homework done, super appreciate it. But thank you very much for all the work you've done. All right.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Got to get a picture.
Do you want to take a picture?
I can take it after.
You want to take it up here?
Oh, I already have a picture. It's up there. I just want to throw it.
Kaylee, we're going to make big decisions now without you.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah. I come to the May 19th one, so I'll just get it out to that one. We'll make sure. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so to keep the show going, now Superintendent Stock will provide a COVID-19 update.
Yeah, and trustees, President Counter Trustees, I'm happy to provide another COVID-19 update. And as we have just 20 days left of school, if you can believe it, I'm hoping that this is very close to the last COVID updates we'll be doing this year. But as we've always shared with these, we just want to establish that context, that unprecedented situation, public health pandemic, budget challenges, and even this part is kind of evolved over the year. Like the biggest lingering budget challenge out of the COVID pandemic for us is the loss of enrollment. Our district did experience severe loss of enrollment. That was also reported in the Sacramento Bee just a week or so ago. And so that is one of the lingering budget challenges for us, as we've worked hard to Remind folks that we are the best public school option in Rocklin, but we still are working to regain enrollment that we lost during the pandemic. And of course, flexibility and adaptability is essential. The board has been making its decisions with our students and staff at the center of that, balancing physical safety, student learning, and social, emotional, mental health throughout this pandemic. The phase school reopening, as we've shared proudly, we are in stage 4, and the goal of the board has been throughout this to move us through this continuum. And we are on April 6th, as you all know, a traditional schedule restrictions, and we were at the hybrid model on September 20th. And again, first in Placer County on both of these, and among the first in the state, especially among unified school districts. And then the next slide gives an additional broader context to what we in Rocklin have been so kind of accustomed to seeing us moving ahead, is reported in EdSource, which is just this week, is that if you look at this on the California learning models that students have, 84% of the schools in our state reported in, and this includes public, private, and charter. And as you can see, only 16% of the students are in full in-person instruction in the state. And I think just pause for a minute and think about what that means, versus 31% in hybrid, 53% in distance learning, that our students are among the rare fortunate in our district to be in a full-time in-person instruction model. And so that's, again, you look at this, less than half the students in public schools have returned to full-time, or even in some type of hybrid. And I think that it's easy, again, to just forget that when we've been back on campus so long. And again, this is due to the leadership of the board and our phenomenal staff that has really stepped up and made this happen for our students. And I know that I am just so proud to be in a district that has made this happen for our students. And I think it just, sometimes it's, again, without that context of the rest of the state, it's easy to lose what we have here in Rocklin. So I just want to emphasize that tonight. And then our tiered system, and we are in the red, is reported that the soonest we could possibly exit it is May 18th. The impact this really has is on some of the gatherings and sizes and folks allowed in. We have all been made aware that on June 15th, high potential that all of this tiered system goes away. And then we are anxious to see what that means for whatever residual guidance or requirements will be for schools and frankly, throughout California in all phases. But the good news is hopefully this system is ending sooner than as soon as we can. The COVID data that we share on our dashboard shows that we did have some increased levels in exposure, quarantining, and in a few other areas. But again, these are, if you look at the total percentage of students impacted and staff, these are small numbers, though we don't want anybody to be sick or miss school or anything else, but these are our overall low levels. Our positive case rate over 2 weeks per school, again, you can see, again, we don't want anybody to be positive of COVID, but you can see very, very low numbers overall. No school even coming close to 1% impacted. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bill McDonald, to kind of update us on COVID vaccinations and some of the quarantining guidance.
Thank you, Superintendent Stock. Good evening, Board of Trustees, President Counter. Good to be here again. Vaccine update. So at this point, Placer County has administered over 300,000 doses of vaccine, which is wonderful. We know that on April 15th, we opened up vaccinations for ages 16 plus. And currently, I believe, let me see if I get this right, Pfizer is offering vaccines for 16 plus, and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson are 18 plus. So all of those are available for some of our students at the high school level. We are encouraging students over 16, particularly our seniors at Rocklin and Whitney and Victory, to vaccinate as soon as possible. There's numerous benefits in terms of staying in school, graduating, participating in sports. We know that adults and students who are fully vaccinated 2 weeks following their second dose will not be required to quarantine if exposed to a positive case. And again, implications for those end of the year activities that we want all students to participate in. We heard today that currently a vaccine for 12 plus is awaiting approval. We thought this would be months out. It could happen as early as next week. So we will look for that update next week. We wanted today to do a review of California Public Health quarantine guidance because we know there continues to be questions around the CDPH guidance in our community. I don't know if many people know that, but Superintendent Stock and I attend a weekly meeting with the county public health officer, and so we get to ask questions and have a dialogue with other superintendents around these issues. Today, we specifically asked these questions to make sure we're on the right track. It was confirmed today that students who are exposed to a positive case of COVID-19 are required to quarantine for 14 days. We know there's some mixed messages out there. If you look at CDC, if you look at county health, if you look at CDPH, you'll see that 10-day quarantine piece on their websites. What some people may not be seeing is the asterisk or the links that accompany that 10-day quarantine piece. So there is guidance that allows for students to quarantine for only 10 days. However, for this to be possible, there's very specific conditions that must be, quote unquote, strictly adhered to, including following all recommended non-pharmaceutical interventions, wearing face coverings at all times, maintaining a distance of at least 6 feet from others, and the interventions required below through day 14. So the one that's difficult and challenging, and has been for months, is the 6 feet of distance requirement. Specifically, we cannot meet that in our schools and classrooms at this time. And so students in classrooms and at school are still required to follow the 14-day protocol. However, the 6 feet requirement can be met in some settings, including in athletics. In these cases, student athletes will be allowed to return and participate in sports after 10 days of quarantine. Student athletes will still not be able to return to school for 14 days. Again, the difference is the setting. Can we meet the 6 feet requirement? It's also different for different sports. For example, we allowed a cheerleader to return to cheer because the coach could assure us she was 6 feet different distance from her peers. However, in other sports, that's not always possible. So it really is on a case-by-case determination. We work with the coach to make sure that's able to happen. This is a snapshot from the Placer County Health Scenario Guidelines. This is the public version, but just affirming, and I highlighted the part that's affirming that ideally this, if on days 11 through 14, if we're following this 10-day protocol, the school would find a way to keep 6 feet of distance. And that would be possible in hybrid or other models for days 11 through 14. And you'll look at the last line, it says that schools may continue 14-day quarantine if they cannot meet the ideal scenario. And again, that is the position we're in here in Rocklin for students in our schools. An update on student quarantine exemptions, because there definitely are exemptions. I mentioned one of them already. Students who are 2 weeks past their final vaccine dose do not have to quarantine for up to 90 days at this point, even if they've been exposed to a positive case. So the only exception to that rule is if the student becomes symptomatic, then we would follow those protocols. Similarly, students who have been positive for COVID-19 are exempt from quarantine due to exposure to a positive case for 90 days, following their 10-day isolation period. Again, this would apply unless they became symptomatic at some point in that 90 days or after exposure. Finally, just some pieces on student athletes. I mentioned a few of these. Student athletes playing indoor sports will continue to require a weekly surveillance test to participate. These tests are administered by our COVID nursing team on Monday and Tuesday. This week specifically, our county dropped below the 7 cases per 100,000 threshold. The only outdoor team we're required to test at this point is water polo. So water polo did not test this week because we were underneath that threshold. Other indoor sports are still required to test regardless of that threshold. So we are still testing the wrestling, basketball, stunt, and volleyball. If students test positive during surveillance testing, these are student athletes, they do have an option to pursue what's called a lab clearance. And a lab clearance preferably consists of 2 negative PCR tests spaced 24 hours apart. If both those tests are negative, the athlete will be cleared to participate in athletic events. However, this is where it gets, I'm not saying any of this is super clear. Athletes acquiring lab clearance will still not be able to return to school until the 10-day isolation period for positive test results has been completed. So the rationale, those differences, are because the guidance for athletics and the guidance for schools are actually different. And it also has to do with the environment and the spacing involved in both of those. So that is guidance we've received again from the county health officer regarding the difference between sports and school.
Thank you, Dr. McDonald, for that clarification. With that being said, I'm happy to come up in front of you again this evening and talk about graduation. As you recall, and some of you were there last year, we did a little drive-through, and that's not what we want for our kids. So CDPH came out with new guidance on graduation ceremonies in March, and we are continuing to work at schools. I want to give a shout out to our Chief Technology Officer, Ryan Johnson. He's in the next room there, but he and I walked with both Whitney and Rocklin today because he secured a company to do our live streaming. So we wanted to make sure we're going to test all that equipment so that goes smoothly. And it was just exciting to really be there on campus and see the kids and see their excitement. And so in order to ensure that all kids have that opportunity, we did recently provide information about trying to prevent them from any exposure. You just heard Dr. McDonald talk about the quarantine requirements. So we want to do everything possible to allow them that opportunity to walk across that stage and have their parents there to witness this event. With that being said, I work with schools today as well, and all high schools will be sharing information with their seniors. They had staff meetings today, and they worked with their senior teachers as far as what can we do in providing them an option. Option would be continue to come to school and go to class and do our best to keep them as far apart as possible, or give them the option to transition to stay at home. Realize that both high schools' senior final grades are due on the 26th, so we're just talking about a matter of days because we want to guarantee that 14-day period. As you saw the data, the last thing that we want to have is anyone fall under that and not be allowed to participate. So continue to work with schools. Again, I haven't seen the update, but both principals reported out that senior teachers had good information to share about how we can make this work. So that information will be coming out from the school sites tomorrow or Friday. This week, that information will go out. With that being said, again, we all look forward to the graduations. Those are going to occur on June 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then also our middle school promotions will not take place on Saturday. They will take place on the 4th. And again, those promotion ceremonies will also be live streamed. It really works out well because both of our 8th grade classes promoting are not quite as large as the senior classes, but almost there, which is a good sign. But they'll be using both Whitney and Rocklin High School for their promotion activities. Finally, our elementary 6th grade celebrations will also be taking place on June 3rd, and sites will be sharing that information with their parents here soon. I'll turn it back over to Superintendent Stock.
So again, just looking at local school districts, and you can see ours is in yellow, that as I shared earlier, we've been back in person learning since September 21st, April 6th full, and August 11th. That doesn't sound far away, but it's closer than it may appear. We will be back with all students full-time, and we are hoping we would love to be able to move to that last phase without restrictions. We will see as the summer unfolds. And in various districts are really, their current status really isn't changing. Folks are locked in. As I shared, we have 20 days of school left, if you can believe that as well. And so districts are determining their final plans for next year. And again, we we'll continue to do that. We've opened and closed our virtual enrollment option for next year, which has shown a much lower level of interest than the previous year. And so we'll continue to keep you updated. And then again, as we close out in these last couple slides, that flexibility actions will be modified and no plan is final. It will continue to evolve and evolve and evolve. And then as we share the next steps, we're continuing to implement for the next 20 days this year, planning and working hard to address the needs of our students this summer. We've begun to, do hiring for summer school and do all that good work. And we're very excited about implementing our learning loss plans for next year. And then we're going to continue to communicate, collaborate, negotiate, and then learn and adapt as well. And so, President, Counter, Trustees, this concludes the May 5th COVID update, and we're happy to answer questions that you may have.
All right. Board comments?
Superintendent Stock, I've gotten a lot of emails from senior parents that are trying to understand how come neighboring districts seem to be able to invite more than 2 guests. Could you address that?
Absolutely. So the way we're working on, we look at this is there's the venue capacity and the number of seniors. So it's really kind of like an equation. And then that determines the number of tickets. Right now, we plan to issue 2 tickets per senior, and we're continually looking at that with our schools. And if there's any way we can expand that to 3 or 4, we will. And so what we wanted to do was let families know we can do 2, and we're going to continually to work that to see if we can expand it out. But it really is venue capacity, number of seniors, and then we have to ensure that the family groups are 6 feet apart when they're seated. And we're looking to use as much of the stadiums as we can. So we hope to expand the number, but those final determinations will be made in the next couple weeks.
Yes, I was actually going to add on that later in my student comment, but I'll ask those questions later. But I'm actually over here, like I saw on one of the public comments that they were mentioning, St. Francis, Granite Bay, Oakmont, Roseville, Wood Creek, Del Oro, Placer, all are getting more seat tickets. So I've actually over here looking up websites, and I found links to every single high school that is saying that St. Francis gets 6 seats and they have family pods, and Granite Bay and Oakmont and Roseville get 4 seats and they each get a wristband. It just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like our stadium is very large. Rocklin Whitney stadiums are both very big compared to other school stadiums. So even if we do have a bigger senior class, I still feel like we can make something work. We're 6 feet away in classrooms. Why can't we be, we're 3 feet away in classes. Why can't we be 3 feet away at a graduation? Like, it just really doesn't make sense to me, and I'll elaborate it more during my student comment, but there's a lot of unhappy people out there, and I feel like, especially after this past week with all of the changes we've been getting for our poor senior class, having an increase in tickets, even if it's just 1 more, 2 is just not enough. And you definitely have to be thinking about, there are so many students who aren't lucky enough to have their parents together. There are so many students who have divorced parents, and their step-parents are equally as close to them as an actual parent. There are adopted students who are close to their adopted parents, but also close to their biological parents. Like, you have to be thinking about these things. And one of my closest friends, she doesn't know what to pick, but because she has 4 parents, so she's thinking, well, do I just invite my sister and my brother so that there's no family drama? Like, these are things that students are losing sleep over and need to be discussed, because it's absolutely ridiculous.
Right, and again, the guidance, and this is where it is just so frustrating and even confusing to all of us, is that the guidance on those types of events requires us to have 6 feet of space between the family groups. So the guidance that we were given on graduations by the Department of Public Health says we have to keep 6 feet of space between the groups. We aren't allowed to use a lower number. And that's why I agree, it's confusing and frustrating that in classrooms we can be 3 feet, but in the guidance we were given by CDPH, it's 6 feet of space. And what we wanted to do was get out to families as quick as we could. We know we can do the 2. We wanted to get that out, and then we're working to look to how can we expand using the track, using other areas to have as many present as we possibly can. Because our goal is not to limit it. It is to have as many as we can there, because we know just this is a big day and well-deserved. So I think we have a shared interest with our seniors and their families of getting many there as we can, but we still have to adhere to the guidance as we do that. And that's why our principals, our activities directors, and our staffs have been, teachers have been working the problem and are continuing to work it as we get closer. So we would really like to be able to offer more, and we will work really hard to do so.
And yes, I totally understand that, but also we've been talking about this for the past 3 meetings now on, we'll get more information and we're gonna keep working and we're gonna keep working, but it's now May 5th and graduation is in less than a month. And we need answers. Like, students are, I'm not even kidding, like, students are actually losing sleep on who gets to come to their graduation because it sucks. We've already lost so much. Okay, now my parents, like, my stepdad can't even come to graduation. Like, for me, I'm blessed and, like, my parents are still together, but that's not the case for hundreds of seniors. And so I totally understand that we have to do measurements and how can we fit people on the track and in the end zones and all of that, but when are we going to get those answers? Because I've talked to teachers, I've talked to other staff members, people at both schools, and nobody knows. You're saying that, like, you're talking to teachers and staff members, but I promise you a lot of them don't know either. So I'm just looking for actual answers now because we've been talking about this for a while, and it's actually something that's really important and people are looking for guidance on.
I have a suggestion. Is there a possibility, Superintendent Stock, that in the event that there is a student that has multiple parents, according to some of the situations that Kaylee mentioned, that we could look at those situations first? Is that a possibility?
We can work with our schools to see how we might accommodate that because we want to make sure that we provide equal access to all people because, that would, so that's our first goal. And sometimes people don't need the tickets they have even, and they might say, I just need one. Not as likely, and so we can look at that. But we want to, be careful in, do we say, well, if it's, I have step-parents, or is it grandparents, or is it siblings, who's more important to a person? So what we are trying to do is give the number of tickets and let the student and family decide who's important for them to be there versus us look at that ranking. If we have a space where, say, it's only like 50 students more or 50 people more can be allowed in, we can definitely look at creating some way where students can make known, I'd like an extra ticket, I have this. So we want to work with that to get as many people in the venue as we can. And so that's what our administrative teams at the schools are working with, and along with our activities directors to do that. And we definitely can continue to do that. And we aren't going to wait for a board meeting to update our families and our seniors. We will update it as soon as we can. And we know that, it's better to have happened yesterday, better today. And so we sense the urgency that Trustee Hamilton mentioned, and we want to have answers.
Is there some type of time frame, because I just have a lot of people asking me, and a lot of people know that I'm here trying to get more information, but I don't want to just come out and be like, okay, well, I still don't know anything, because that's what people
Mr.
are
Flowers,
feeling.
I know you're working directly with schools. Do you know of an update on what the time frame might be with that?
So at both schools, we walked the stadium today, and to ensure that where the stage will be set up, we are looking to maximize the stands, maximize the track, and then even behind where the students usually sit in the end of the end zone, we're going to maximize that area. So again, we're working that plan. When information first came out, we did have 2, but as others have expanded, like Superintendent Stock mentioned, we're working to maximize. We will fill the stadium with as many people as possible under the guidance.
And I think that Ms. Hamilton was asking, when might we know? Do you have any anticipated time frame on when we might know?
I would say by early next week would be a goal.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Are there any public comments tonight?
There are public comments.
We have some written comments.
In the written comments.
Okay. So before we go to written comments, do I have any public comments? Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. And again, this is on the COVID update, so if you're good with that, or do you want to wait on something else? So I apologize. After this, we'll do the general public comment, but just from a COVID update, if you got something. Okay.
On this, yeah.
Yes, yeah, correct.
Yeah. It seems like we're not really allowed to talk, which is kind of hard because I feel like.
Yeah, so sorry, real quick. So state your name.
Yeah.
And then just like
Sure.
what schools your kids go to, that
Sure.
kind of stuff, and then
Oh, yeah.
The spot's yours for about 3 minutes, so, good.
Good, yeah. My name's Kevin. I have 5 kids. 2 of them go to Antelope Creek.
Okay, great.
Right, and anyways, talking about all the COVID talk, it is kind of hard because I feel like every time you guys are saying something, I wish I could just kind of, have the back and forth so we could say, oh, I don't think that's a good idea because, and it's just kind of hard because that's just not how this works, I guess. But unfortunately, I feel like when you're looking for answers and I'm looking for answers and you just want a damn answer, right? Sorry. And anyways, the thing is, I feel like it shouldn't be so hard because all we're talking about is these rules and these CD whatevers and all these things, and it's just really tough. Can we just go back to basics and say, we live in America, can we just do what we feel's right? If you want to bring 4 people, then bring 4 people. You're not doing anything wrong, you're not hurting anybody. And if somebody says you are, then I'm sorry they feel that way. Now, I know, maybe, I don't know if that sounds rude or something, I don't mean to be rude. But I think sometimes you have to be rude to be nice, and that's such a weird thing to say as well. But with all these guidelines, is there any wiggle room where we can wiggle outside of the guidelines and say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and be like this school I saw on TV and this thing that happened, and we're going to go ahead and override and say, you know what, come stop us, we're not doing anything wrong, and I think that's the nicest way to say it, because I can't believe I put a mask on. I don't do this at work. We don't do this anywhere we go. Every store we go to, I think this is absolutely ridiculous. And maybe some will agree, maybe some won't. Again, I'm so afraid of offending people that I just don't say anything at all. But it's time. Our new mission now is we're going to have to go private, and we're going to have to figure out, not for schools, we're going to have to go private as far as because Facebook and everything keeps monitoring us. We are going harder as for next year, August. We are going to make sure our kids are back to school to normal, and if it's not, we're going to start using more and more of our powers from our followings at our stores and our local whatevers. We're going to do every single thing we can, and I know you guys are not bad people, but you're just following these dang rules, and I'm trying to say, like, can we try to not follow these rules? Is there any way we can say, yeah, these are great suggestions, but let's do, let's do what we feels right in our hearts, So I want you to have your answer. I really want you to have your answer. And I know they can't really give you that answer because it's just they have their reasons why they can't. I understand that too. So can we just stop understanding each other and just go back to America and trust our immune systems and do what we think's right and get a vaccine if you want. Don't get one if you don't want. Stop telling me I have to wear one or wear a mask, get a vaccine. Just leave me alone. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be nice and courteous, and I'm going to pay my taxes and do all the things I'm supposed to do. I want to go back to the red, white, and blue that we were supposed to be standing up for here. And our kids' emotional health is freaking, come on. This is what I'm talking right now for. I need them to go back to normal. I think my time's up. Anyways, yeah, our girls, they're going to be, Antelope Creek again. We're not going to go pull them out to some other school. We're not going to do anything crazy. But I am going to start getting a little bit more extreme with our signs and our whatever, and I will stand out in front of the school every single day respectfully and say enough's enough, please, who's going to join me? And I know enough moms and help, people at I own a hair shop. I will be on there talking to the 10,000 followers I have, doing whatever I can. And it's no bashing to any names, nothing like that. Just be with me, because that's all I want to do is the right things for my kids. And it's just crushing me right now. So all right. Please, let's get some answers and just try not to do the whole rule thing, All
right, cool. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hello, I'm Travis Mojette. My kids go to Twin Oaks and Springview. I just want to point out a concern, and if we get an answer, I was going to save this for my RTPA time, but it's more appropriate to the COVID update. But totally love that there are some exceptions to the rules, or not exceptions, but ways to kind of allow students back, right? The 10-day, if we can get the 6-foot thing. My concern with that, though, was around the athletics piece, that students can get the lab clearance, I think you said, Dr. McDonald. My concern there is the equity element to that, is because these tests aren't cheap, and they're not just readily available to any and everyone. So is that happening for any athlete that requests it and the district has resources to get them that opportunity? Or is it falling upon the family that has the means to go get that 2 tests in 24 hours or whatever the window of time was there? and the financials to make that happen. So we're not making sure that it's just our socio-advantaged students getting those opportunities. Instead, any athlete that is in the situation can attempt to get the lab clearance and not being blocked by any other barriers that are out of their control. Just a question, I know we can't exchange, but just want to put that out there as an area of concern with that, that idea. So that's all.
All right, thank you, Travis. All right, Julie, do we have any written? Okay.
COVID stuff still, right? I'll try to be nice, but I'm very angry what's going on in our school system. Very angry. And this gentleman just said there's going to be a new vaccine for kids under 16. He told a half-truth. It's approved. It's not approved. The FDA has not approved any vaccines yet. We are not your guinea pigs. My son's not your guinea pig. My sons are not going to take the vaccines, and they're not going to be socially punished for doing so. And the only person up here that's making sense, it's very sad to me, is the student. Not the adults, it's the student pushing back. She's the only one pushing back. You guys look up to the CDC or whatever the Placer County thinks, and you do whatever they say. She sees how ridiculous the rules are, but you guys this is what we're going to do. We're not going to fight back. I drive a little girl to school. She's in 2nd grade. She's on anxiety medicine now because she's afraid to die, and she's afraid her parents are going to die because you're making her wear these masks. This is an experimental mask, too. It doesn't do anything. I'm sure you guys have heard it. It doesn't do anything. This is all a joke, this mask. It's a joke, okay? It doesn't stop the spread of a respiratory virus, okay? You are putting these masks on children. It's child abuse, okay? You are there to protect our children. This little girl, because of these irrational rules you're placing on her, she has a mental condition now of anxiety. That is child abuse, okay? Are you going to stand up for her, or is it just going to be me? And I'm really sad that we only have 5 or 6 people here. I can't believe it. This is our country, America. We have choices. And also, I know what's going to happen because my sister in the Bay Area, she's not going to get her kid the vaccine. You know what they're doing? They're putting vaccinated kids in one class and non-vaccinated kids in the other class. Socially shaming students. That is discrimination. And I have no doubt it's coming here. My kids are not going to take the shot. They're no one's guinea pigs. No one knows the side effects of these shots long term. These masks are ridiculous. These rules of 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart, it's not science. Everyone says, follow the science, follow the science, follow the science. It's not science. Stanford study just came out. Masks do absolutely nothing. MIT study just came out. 6 feet apart, all this social distance, nothing. It does nothing. But you guys don't want to listen to that and fight back. You're just going to sit here and do what you're told from higher above. And I don't know you personally, but I'm sure you're just worried about your job or getting that next raise or whatever. And our kids are suffering. It's disgusting. I'm so tired of seeing it. Okay, I go watch the Rocklin High School boys basketball team. It's the greatest show in the city, and no one could go watch them because of a virus that we have 99.97% chance of surviving. There is no pandemic going on. The vulnerable people have the chance to take their shot. They're not vulnerable anymore. Okay, this is a joke. And there's only 4 weeks left of school. I'm praying and I'm going to fight like hell that everything is back to normal next year. No compromising, okay, we'll be 7 feet apart. This is ridiculous. You guys should be ashamed of yourself that this is going on in our country. We have rights. We don't need medical papers to show you to go to school. And what I do with my kid is between my wife and my doctor. And it's none of your business or none of the school's business.
Right.
Okay?
Sir.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. So, hey, so, yeah, so ma'am, can you just state your name, where your kids go, and then I got 3 minutes, okay? Thank you, ma'am.
My name's Rose. My husband and I have 4 children that attend Rocklin Unified Schools. I would like to share a little bit about my background so that you guys can appreciate where I'm coming from. I have a degree in biology, pre-medical sciences from Loyola University, Chicago. I am also a registered nurse initially in Illinois, now in California. I'm in my 21st year of practice, 14 of those in emergency medicine. I'm here today because my 11-year-old son was sent home for 2 weeks because of a close contact, COVID positive, the flu. My 16-year-old is a sophomore at Rocklin High School, a varsity basketball player, who has now missed 2 weeks of basketball practice as well as the games because a close contact was COVID positive. Again, the flu. My 8th grader, who attends Granite Oaks, did not get a basketball season. As parents, we have been told time and time again, Rocklin is following the California Department of Health and Placer County Public Health guidelines. I have reviewed those guidelines, as well as the Centers for Disease Control data. If we look at the pediatric population according to the CDC guidelines, for example, 44 states reported between March 1st, 2020 and December 12th, 2020. They took this data of children ages ranging 0 to 17 with pre-existing medical conditions and none, okay? The deaths of these children between age groups, 0 to 4, less than 0.1%. Ages 5 to 10 are elementary school children, less than 0.1%. Ages 11 to 13, middle schoolers, less than 0.1%. Ages 14 to 17 are high schoolers, less than 0.1%. Now let's talk about Placer County Public Health. 289 deaths involved in a COVID diagnosis, no mention of pre-existing conditions that I could locate, but we can probably infer based on their age groups. 0 deaths, 0 to 4. 0 deaths, ages 5 to 17. 1 death, 18 to 34. Of those 289 deaths with a positive COVID result, 169 were over the age of 80. Now, these numbers are also reflective of the national COVID deaths, with the majority being in the elderly population. They probably also had pre-existing conditions. A little perspective. In 2019, we lost 221 kids under the age of 15 to drowning. We did not ban pools. In 2019, 612 kids died in motor vehicle accidents. We did not ban cars. During the 2018-2019 flu season, per the CDC reporting, 61,200 people died from the flu. 106 were children. We did not close down our schools or our businesses. As parents, what options do we have? Well, as you noted earlier, enrollment is down. We are pulling our kids out of school, okay?
Rose.
If I may finish,
Yeah.
please.
Quickly, thank you.
We have vaccines for emergency use, okay? None of it is FDA approved, but we've been giving them, okay? And we've given, over 300,000 in Placer County. We have 400,000 people here. So why are we universally masking children? There is no evidence that this is protecting children. Why are we quarantining children for 14 days?
Thank you.
Okay, why? We are following guidelines, okay, that there is no evidence that this is actually protecting people from the flu, okay? I've been in the ER for 18 months drowning in COVID. I am okay. And no, I am not getting the vaccine. And neither will my 4 children or my husband, okay? And my reason for being here today is that I do not want to see this going into the fall, okay? Because I have 4 kids and all 4 are in sports. And I want to see some return of normalcy for these kids, because you guys don't even see in the ER children coming in with depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation,
Rose,
suicide
thank you.
attempts, and none of you are talking about it, okay? None of you are talking about it, but it's happening. And I'm seeing it for the first time. 21 years as a nurse, I am seeing it daily in the ER, and nobody's talking about it. So I hope that you will review these guidelines because they are suggestions and guidelines. Nothing is in concrete. And I do not want to see this anymore in the fall. And I will do whatever I have to do as a parent to make sure that it doesn't affect my children, including removing them from the Rocklin Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. All right. Trustee Hupp, do we have any written public comment?
Yes, President Counter, there are 3 written public comments on the COVID-19 update.
All right. Take 2-3 minutes to review those, and then we'll go to the,
Although, can I just say that there are several that actually are they meant to query, talk about COVID, but they're in the, so take a look at general as well and cover that now.
And after you guys read those, I actually have a few more questions I'm going to ask, so.
So before we jump to public comment, Kayla, give you one more shot.
Yes, so I just want to backtrack on a few things. First off, Roger Stock, you were saying that you have all the high schools in Placer County have received guidelines from the CDC or wherever. If we're all in the same guidelines, why are some schools different? Why are the smaller schools having more people? I understand we're a big school, but I feel like we should also be a more flexible school, because I feel like Rocklin and Whitney High School and the RUSD school district is always trying to be different. That's what you guys promote. That's what you guys want. So why are we being different in a negative sense instead of a more positive sense? Why? So if we're all going off the same guidelines, why are some schools allowed to do more than us?
Can you be more specific in when you say they're allowed to do more than us, so I can answer your
Yeah,
question?
so like St. Francis gets 6 tickets per pod at their graduation. Granite Bay High School, Oakmont High School, Roseville High School, Abilene High School, they all get 4 seats at their graduation, as well as Wood Creek. Del Oro and Placer High School also get 3 tickets. And I just got this within 5 minutes of Googling some stuff, and sometimes you put the thing up there about this is what other districts are doing. So, I don't know if you want to add that to your research, but there are a lot of other high schools that are allowed to do more in a sense than we only get 2 tickets.
I don't have any additional information that what I or Mr. Flowers shared with you about the number of tickets tonight. I know that's extremely frustrating.
And I understand that. I'm just trying to understand why, if we're all going off the same guidelines.
And so it's a matter of looking at each individual venue, like Rocklin and Whitney stadiums can each hold different amounts of people. So it's looking at the venue, looking at the number of students that are graduating, and then you literally plan out how many can fit in each. So, for example, at Forest Hill High School in our county, they have a couple hundred students. So they may end up with a different amount of students in that graduation tickets than, say, Del Oro, which is in the same school district. So as you heard Mr. Flowers say, they were out in the stadium today. We plan to update the number next week and work to put as many in as we can. And so there will be differences within our county, within even the state, depending on venue size and graduating class size. And that may seem frustrating, but we're working to put as many in as we can. But there will be differences even within our own county and throughout the region as well.
All right, so then going off of that, I'd have come up with a few other options and ideas that just to throw out there. What if we buy more bleachers? I know we've done that for the Corey Bowls in the past for student sections. Why can't we do it for parents to come watch that? What if we do a strict side where it's all 6 feet apart and then a more less strict side? Obviously you want to advertise it as that, but you could do something like that in a sense. You could put like family pods in a sense, so like the Hamilton family and what other family group together, so we're all close together, but then the other pods can be separate, so it's not just like, okay, 2 people, you're 6 feet apart, because that causes a lot of space to be taken up. But instead you could do family pods. That's what St. Francis is doing. It's on their website right now. I can send you the link if you'd really like to see it. But that's something you could throw out there. Yes, I understand it'd be more work having to figure out what families can go in different pods, but I'll be the first to volunteer to organize that, because why not organize another thing for our senior class? What if you do COVID testing before, okay? So if you want to come to graduation, you need to get a COVID test for the guests or show your vaccine card. These are all just so many different ideas that we could think of, and it's not like you're gonna be contact tracing. Summer's the next day, so it's hard to wrap my head around, because I'm a 17-year-old student who's coming up with all these different things, and I feel like as a school district that prides themselves on being one of the top districts in the area, why are we only settling for what we have? Why are we compromising? Why don't we find more, do more, find solutions? Because, you guys all know our senior class has kind of gotten screwed over this year, and sorry if that sounds rude, but this is literally our last hurrah and our only thing that the school has sponsored that is the whole senior class together. And I feel like as a district and as a board and as everybody in here, we should not be settling for only 2 tickets.
So I'll just add, we had this discussion today, and I do believe we'll be able to maximize up to about 2,000 socially distanced, but I'd be happy to sit down with you and review the guidance and then work with, obviously you're at Whitney High School, we can work with Mr. Feuerbach and Principal Cutts to try to figure out anything else we can do to maximize that. We did order an additional 1,000 chairs, because chairs are a premium right now, And so, again, we've gone through our normal process to try to make graduations as normal as possible under these guidelines. So I'm happy to work with you to maximize, and as you heard Superintendent Stock say earlier, we want to do everything we can to maximize under the guidelines.
Yeah.
But I'd be happy to sit
Perfect,
down
yes.
with you.
I would love to see the numbers and the measurements and all of that. That would help my brain wrap my head around this.
And if somebody has a great idea, we're open to it. But just because you haven't heard about some of the ideas, like the extra 1,000 chairs, doesn't mean we haven't been working the problem. And I do have to say that our staffs have been working extremely hard to do everything they can. And again, but we're open to good ideas, and because we don't want to leave any stone unturned, but we are required to follow the guidance, and so we will do so. So we can't say, well, we'll just have a section for folks who don't care to follow the guidance and let them in. We can't do that. That's not appropriate. But I think I appreciate you. Hope you take Mr. Flowers up on working with him to share ideas you have and wonderings, because that all helps us solve the problem.
I appreciate, Kaylee, you're a solver, and that's a great quality to have. And hey, I appreciate that it's like, hey, let's figure this out, right? And I think as a parent of a senior and as a community member, we all want to feel like those that are working the problem are doing their best. And you know, this is a perfect example. Mr. Flowers comes up and he says, hey, I've ordered chairs, right? And I believe Superintendent Stock wants as many people there as we can. And so I just appreciate the teamwork and the suggestions, and also that we can hopefully have some trust moving forward that they're going to do their best to make it great for everybody, because I know it's hard. It's really hard. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's just great information. Like, that's stuff that I feel like should be announced. Like, yeah, right now it's only 2 tickets, but we ordered more chairs, so hopefully there'll be updates. Like, just stuff on that, because like as a senior, like we're like, okay, well, we got an email from Mr. Stock yesterday. It's 2 tickets, and that's all everybody really knows. So yeah, that's all.
You know, I think there's already been great discussion about COVID. We've had great discussion for 9 months about COVID, right? And we're figuring things out as we go. And I had some comments saved for my board comments. However, they do relate to our COVID report. And so I think it's important. First, Superintendent Stock, I thank you. I know you took 3 hours yesterday to meet with me. As I myself battled with, I continue to hear, this is the guidance. This is the guidance. This is the guidance. And I found myself struggling, colleagues, and I felt like it was appropriate to share with you that I found myself struggling with my role here as local government, to really listen to our parents and really say, at what point do we ask more questions? At what point do we assess what is working and what isn't working for us? And I know for many that can sound crazy, that can sound dangerous. But I appreciate that we were able to talk Superintendent Stock yesterday, and you were able to really explain to me why that guidance is a little more than it appears to be. And so I thought that would be helpful if you could take a moment to really help us understand a little bit more why this guidance is actually not just guidance. And then also a follow-up, I know you reached out to our legal counsel for me to really look into what options we do have as a board. If we find ourselves in the same scenario post June 15th, if we find our community really asking these questions that we honestly don't always have answers to because it's the guidance we're given. And I do feel the heart of parents reaching out to me, saying this guidance at times feels illogical. This guidance at times is contradicting. And so whose burden is it to prove what guidance we follow as a board? And so, Superintendent Stock, could you take a moment to clarify first why we even have to take into consideration CDPH guidance? And then second, what other legal options we may have should we feel this guidance becomes a harm for our students?
And I appreciate that question. I think one of the most confusing parts is the word guidance, and it's, you know, California Department of Public Health guidance. Our legal counsel has shared with me, and this is an opinion that's not unique to our legal counsel or our district, but is widely known throughout the state, is that the guidance really is public health orders. So they use the word guidance, but nearly everything that they've instructed us is under the terms of the governor's, emergency authority under this public health pandemic. And there, when they issue this guidance, they're really issuing public health orders, and as a school district, we're obligated to follow public health orders. That it's a legal requirement. It's not optional, because I can really understand how people in the community could say, well, if this is guidance meant to guide the school board in making decisions, then there's an optional portion to it. And what this is these are really public health orders that is a legal public entity. We have a requirement to follow, and that can extend, for example, to Cal OSHA, which is the body that oversees workplace safety, and we're required to follow those rules legally, and much of the guidance is aligned to that. So as a public agency, we have a requirement to follow the law, and that's why the idea of when they use that word guidance, it really can be confusing, but we have a legal obligation to. The second question you'd ask me is, well, what options do we have if we feel the guidance is not correct or it's not appropriate? And really, as a public agency, we don't really have, again, a legal option to say we're just going to disregard it and do what we want and be in compliance with the law. And the way that it works is if the board could, or any public entity could, go to court to seek relief from a public a law or that they're required to follow. And so that would involve going through the legal system to see if the courts would provide a relief or a change from a law or guidance that is not agreed with. And so that is the legal remedy that's available to our district or any other public agency to change or not have to follow the guidance. So, and we've seen that happen and occur in our state and even in some places at the national level. For example, challenges to the guidance around worship services. And so that would be the legal remedy available to the district.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So 7.1, public comment. So moving now to public comment on non-agenda items. The agenda item included is to give anyone in attendance an opportunity to ask questions or discuss non-agenda items with the board. The board is not permitted to deliberate or take any action on non-agenda items, but may refer the matter to a staff member for follow-up. A complaint about a specific employee of the district shall be made to the employee's immediate supervisor or the principal as required by Administrative Regulation 1312.1. As a reminder, individuals who wish to provide verbal public comment must do so in person. I see folks are lining up, which is great. And I'll ask, and I see some folks, so is there anyone present tonight who would like to address the board with a public comment on a non-agenda item? And I know, and you're right there, so it's great. So just when you do, just please state your name, where your kids go to school, so we can have some reference, and then you got 3 minutes, so appreciate it, thank you.
3 minutes, you sure? Can I take this off? Or can I just lower it so you can hear me? Okay, fantastic, all right. So good evening, trustees, Superintendent Stock, administration. So my name's Tawana Armstrong. I am parent of a former student. She graduated in 2018, and engaged resident who love where I live. So I stand before you because I want to acknowledge the Equity Steering Committee. They gave their report last meeting, and unfortunately I wasn't present, but I want to make sure that I am on record in acknowledging the work that has been done. My daughter was a victim, survivor now, of some incidents at Rocklin High, and it was because of that my heartbeat that I see walk outside of my body, I made sure that I got involved. And Marty, and I apologize, I am going to be somewhat informal because I do consider these people that have allowed me to work with them afford me that informality. So Marty, Bill, Tony, good evening, sir, and I will reserve respect. Superintendent Stock have allowed me to work with them for the last 3 years, and I do want to acknowledge the work that has been done, but I also want to acknowledge that there's more work to be done when it comes down to ensuring that every student that touches a campus within the Rocklin School District gets the best education that they can. And I would hope that they can attest to you that every time I meet with them, my mantra is, you cannot be a racist and be a teacher. I hope you will attest to that. Every student deserves the best education possible, and I am bound and determined to make sure that that happens, be they purple, red, blue, polka dot, no matter the circumstances. But I do want to make sure that I give props where props are due. They have worked with me. They have allowed me to hold up the mirror, and sometimes I know when I hold it up, it looks like I'm going to drop it and break it, but I guarantee you, I walk with you, I walk beside you, and I want to make sure, as I say to you, I am bound and determined to make a difference. I am bound and determined that every school is a safe zone for the kids within the Rocklin School District. I hope, and I would think that all of you would agree with me on that every child deserves to be phenomenal, and that's exactly what I want for the kids within my community. So as I stand before you, giving props where they are due, thank you, Marty, for always listening to me. Bill, thank you so much. You hold up the mirror back to me, and I appreciate that. Tony, I appreciate your phone call. Superintendent Stock, thank you so much for listening to me over the 3 years, and I offer you now any apologies as we continue to work together, and I continue to push to make sure that things for every student is as they should be. I do offer and extend an invitation to you to come to the Chalk It Up events, because those events are there to target those who would make Rocklin out to be not what it is, not what we know it can be. I would offer to you that I do intend to follow up with each one of you personally so that I can meet with you and we can come up with a strategy working together to make sure that you are bound and determined as I am to make sure that every kid gets the greatest education so that they can become phenomenal. Your thoughts and prayers are not what I need. I need your action. I need you to know that it is not something that you take on and you put off at the end of the day, that it is a journey, and I am bound and determined to make sure it happens. So I give you props for your steering committee, and I look forward to continue working with you. Thank you, Superintendent Stock.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Shannon Catanella. I live in Rocklin. I have 2 kids at Sierra Elementary. The chalk event that Tawana mentioned is at Breen Elementary. It's on May 16th from 10 to 12:30, if anybody's going to add that to their calendar. I also want to say Happy Teacher Appreciation Week. I also want to say that I'm grateful to the professionals working in math and science for making it possible for us all to meet here with you today with a better understanding of things going on throughout this pandemic. And I'm grateful to everyone in front of me and behind me who has spent all these hours in these meetings throughout the pandemic. At the April 21st board meeting, the administration did a great job presenting some pretty bleak data around the students of color in Rocklin. The 25% rate of those kids feeling unsafe at school and suicidal is deeply concerning. I'm heartened by the focus that will be placed on socio-emotional supports next year, and I hope there might be a way to fast-track some of those supports, such as surveys and wellness checks this year. Faced with that alarming data, I thank Trustee Miller for asking for a deeper and more frequent engagement on the efforts in this area. The student constituency is the most equipped to share their daily interactions, and I hope testimonials from the panel late last month and the upcoming Inclusivity Week at Whitney can be shared sooner rather than later. We all suffered this year, and it seemed to come in a double whammy. I've heard it called a double pandemic. The district's ability to adapt and include a monthly COVID update was so valuable, and like the request, I'd like to evaluate and adapt to the safety data in the California Healthy Kids Survey. Could we include an equity report more regularly? Also, Trustee Price mentioned a stand-up, speak-up program. That sounds a lot like the upstander or bystander training. That could be something worth incorporating into the socio-emotional curriculum that will be adopted for next year. And for any parents who have not heard about the racial healing conversations that happened this year through the district, I would highly recommend enrolling in that series. Although there may be a concern about solicitation fatigue, an opportunity for families and their voices to be heard is worth it. There may be survey fatigue, but everyone loves to feel that they are being heard and the opportunity to have a dialogue around their own experience, especially on the heels of a pandemic. There are great things on the horizon for all students here, and we can continue to come together and support them with empathy and compassion. And finally, would it be possible to have students manage the updating of the equity portal The affinity groups could do it, or maybe it would be a valuable experience for students studying communications. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any other? Trustee Hupp, do we have any written public comments regarding non-agenda items?
I think we've already read them all.
All right. One quick one before we get to employee organizations, and just read this out. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our Rocklin Unified School District staff. Each member of our team stepped up and was committed to make sure we continue to provide excellence in education every single day. So our school support staff, custodial, administrators, bus drivers, our teachers continued to adjust through the learning model each time. While this week is Staff Appreciation Week, I wanted to each of our team members to know that we appreciate the hard work, the dedication that each of you display every single day. And I think for those of you out there, Travis, I'm looking from educator standpoint, you have just the great opportunity to create that impact with all those kids and all the folks that work on our campuses, and it's just something remarkable. So unlike some of us that don't have that opportunity on a daily basis, it's a great thing. And I know you guys get the kids always say thank you, and they say it in their little ways, but for the teachers, for the staff appreciation, just thank you guys for everything that you guys have done throughout this year. And I know this is the week, but just again, thank you. So moving on, we'll do the employee organization report. So Travis Mojette, our RTPA president. Welcome, Travis.
Thank you, and good evening. Yeah, and I got to start the same way. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. I think that's the highlight of everything. I sent an email out to our membership kind of joking about if you're an elementary teacher, this is the week that you get showered with gifts. If you're a high school teacher, this is the week you envy the elementary teachers. Just because there's that different dynamic. So, and it's not for any lack of appreciation for those secondary teachers. It's just, it's one of those fun things we tease each other about. And appreciate the kind words there, President Counter. Also want to acknowledge Superintendent Stock sent out an email to all staff as well. There's an element of this, though, and I don't want this to sound ungrateful or to sound petty, so I apologize if it comes out that way. I kind of talked to Superintendent Stock about this already, but where actions and words need to match up. We can say thank you, we can say how much we appreciate each other, but it's the actions, right? These board meetings are great, but at the end of the day, it's what we do tomorrow with each other. It's what we do the following day with each other, on the phone call, on campuses, all those things. And I just want to make sure that we're working continually, because we're all guilty of this, that our actions don't always meet those words and the intent of our words. An area where I would love to see some time spent on that, and the Superintendent Stock said we have 20 school days left, right, in the year. Thank God, first of all, that the year is winding down for all of the reasons that I think are obvious. But I would love to see some emphasis in that action in reigniting our labor management group. Trustee Miller, I know you've been directly involved with that, and we were really making some good headway. It was a slow, rough start, and we were really making, and then pandemic hit, and for lack of a better description, we all went back to our old ways, which were not good, and they're not good for relationship building. They're not good for just amicable, if anything other than contentious relationship. And I really want to see an emphasis, our TPA is dedicated to making the time to meet, even if it is only one time between now and the end of the year, as busy as things are, and my team's probably not going to love that we're going to add yet another thing to their plates, but I think it's that important. I think especially with the changing out of some board members, so we'll have an opportunity, if Trustee Miller wants to continue, but none of the existing board members outside of Trustee Miller were able to participate before, and so we have an opportunity to bring in a new board member, or if Rick's ready to let two new come in, and we're all welcome to that as well. So again, just really want to emphasize that actions and words, and that labor management to us is one of those biggest actions that we truly started to make some headway in this conversation and in this whole rebuilding process that we've kind of been calling it. I also want to acknowledge, kind of more on a micro note, the work that's being done at Rock Creek through the Wellness Together group. So Superintendent Stock, Bill and I have been heavily involved with some rebuilding and culture and just relationship over at Rock Creek. And it's been truly an honor to watch that campus start in a really rough place, but get to a place now where even if it's an agree to disagree conversation, they're being had. And it's uncomfortable and it's awkward, but they're being had, and it's not festering into everything else that it has festered into. And I got a chance to catch up with our wellness team from, I believe it was yesterday, and just to watch, I mean, we're talking about adults, right? Very experienced educators across that campus. And it's just like the journey we watch with every one of our students that comes in day one of school to the end of the school year, whether they're a TK or to a high school senior. And I really want to see that emphasis on every single campus. And the great news is not every campus is in the dire situation that Rock Creek was. And I don't mean to disrespect Rock Creek. I think they were well aware of things just weren't working. And again, I want to commend them for owning that and then being willing to work to get to where they hope to be. But I really would love to see some sort of focus like that on every campus. And it's going to vary to a degree. And I know we probably can't bring in wellness on every campus, especially to the level we did. But we really saw some great things. And most importantly, we saw some organic things happening on that campus. And that's what I want to, again, that labor management group is that at the big 30,000 foot level, and wellness and what they've done at Rock Creek is that down at that 10,000 foot level. And just to find an area that we emphasize. I was super excited to hear in my staff meeting at Whitney High School today, and it's been mentioned a few times tonight, some of the social emotional focus that's going into next year. Because we talk about it a lot, and to be honest, we talk about it a lot, and then the year starts and things get muddy and it doesn't happen to that extent. But the plan that's in place and the resources that are already available so we can actually start becoming familiar, and it's not a on August 10th, learn what you're doing on August 11th approach is truly appreciated. And just making sure that we're doing that. And I really appreciate that it's not going to be so lockstep that Rocklin High looks exactly like Whitney High, which looks exactly, there's adaptability there to the different needs and desires of those campuses. It's just, again, it's really cool to see that because we tend to focus on that a little bit more intentionally at elementary because the environment of elementary just allows for that. High school, there's already 700 other things outside of school going on that aren't on an elementary campus, and it just, so again, it's just a great approach. I want to commend the team at Whitney High School. I don't even know all of the names involved there that are working on that, but I know a lot of time's gone into that. And I believe Mr. Flowers has been behind the scenes on that one as well, him and his team. So. Concerning areas, and I guess not concerning, but just confusing areas, and I think we've heard, there's a lot of confusion around COVID and guidance and all that stuff, and we're all going to agree to disagree and agree to agree, and Rick, I know I say this almost every meeting, but you and I from the onset said that's going to be the relationship, and I think it's important that everybody understands that's a relationship with every single element of what we do in schools, whether it's COVID, whether it's board and union, right? Whether it's teacher and student, principal and teacher, every relationship's going to have those elements of agree to disagree. But having the tools to be able to agree to disagree and then all still walk next to each other, that's the goal, right? Again, the two ladies that spoke before me, first of all, rock stars in our community and all the work that they do. I'm pretty sure they both put in more hours than probably a group of employees in our district, and it's just amazing to watch those two work. But they nailed it on the head, the ability to walk next to each other in every topic that we're working on. And, whether it's the equity piece for our students, it's the relationships for our labor partners and our management, but most importantly, it's our district and our community, right? I mean, that's what drives all of this. But where I want to go back to the confusing piece is, I think it's obvious when you go outside in a very literal way to see that Rocklin is growing pretty rapidly. I don't know about you guys, but I got priced out of Rocklin about 5 minutes after they accepted the offer on the house I live in now. And I for sure cannot afford to live in the neighborhood I now live in. So I'm grateful for that. But we see that everywhere, and then we keep hearing this declining enrollment, where are all of our kids? And there's no doubt, we had a big change in enrollment this year. I mean, circumstances obvious to everybody involved. But on the other spectrum, or the end of that spectrum, we hear regularly that and it's on our board agenda tonight. We're going to approve new facilities to be added to Whitney High School because we're busting at the seams. This summer, that's going to happen for next school year. So I'd like to see a little bit more of a transparent enrollment guide that's publicly available. I know I can ask the question, well, yeah, we're growing in secondary and we're not in elementary. Okay, that's a cool idea. Thanks for answering my question, but I think people need to see the specifics of that. Because there's a lot of, my kids are getting reassigned or the schools are full or again, classrooms literally busting at the seams, but then we hear time in and time out that numbers are down and we got to recruit kids. I think there's no doubt that, again, it was obvious. A lot of kids chose alternative paths for education this year, and there's a big hope. And, for lack of a better word, Superintendent Stock, graciously begs and asks for people to come back to us every board meeting. But I think, again, let's go back to that actions and words. If our actions show that we prioritize the things that get people to want to be in our schools, whether they live in Rocklin or not, that's what's going to get that enrollment back on every level at every site. But again, finding a way that enrollments are more transparent. How do we know? I know right now, and it's kind of a silver lining, but the COVID update, that actually tells me individual school enrollments roughly. I mean, I know it doesn't update every day, but the spreadsheet that compares each school that we get a look at on a weekly basis. So hoping to continue something like that. What are enrollments? Where are we at? And I think it helps from a staffing standpoint so teachers can look at it with a clear lens of, am I one that might actually be moving sites next year because enrollment at X school is actually, that neighborhood is built out and students in that pocket area are aging out. I think Valley View's experienced that as one of our first schools to kind of age out, and then now they're seeing that rebirth as younger families move back into that Rocklin High School Valley View area, Cobblestone and others in that area as well. However, while enrollments are fluctuating, I do want to acknowledge the gratefulness that we did rescind all of our pink slips. That was Tony and I. It's like our Friday thing now, like great news, and we get to tell people and Superintendent Stock, helping make or establishing a sense of urgency to get that communication out so staff members were aware that, okay, we can let our guard down a little bit, anxiety, let's ease that up a little bit. My concern around that, though, is we play this game, and I hate to call it that, but that's what it feels like when you're on the other end of it, of we got to reduce staffing in March. And I know that there's a state deadline and some things that are out of our control, but then come April, May, we're like, never mind, right? And for whatever reason, we make it work. And it goes back to the extreme years of 2008, 2010, 100 whatever pink slips and rescinding all, I think literally all, but just about all, if not literally. We got to find a better way to get our projections and prioritize whether they're high, low, or the same, that we're not putting people through what it puts through, because pink slips are people and their families. They're not positions and numbers and budget line items. And like I shared last time, even with the rescission, we're likely still going to lose some phenomenal teachers because they had to look out for themselves and their family and go seek other opportunities, as well as there's some that are just disenchanted because of what doesn't feel like the thanks and appreciation in words are being shown in the actions. So again, I just want to make sure that we're emphasizing that process. How can we be better at projections? We talked about a little bit, and I'm going to misquote, I believe it was Ms. Patterson that presented, we're going to do a little bit better of averaging some bigger chunks of time with student numbers and hard numbers and enrollment in different parts of the year to try to be better at that. But just really emphasizing that, and I don't think you guys make these decisions lightly, but when we start talking about reduction in people, and while I stand up here for RTP, I mean people in general, I think we can all agree our people are our literal strongest asset in whatever position they serve in the district. And just making sure that we're not playing. It feels like a yo-yo game with people and their lives and their families that are impacted by that. And again, I don't ever think that it's an intentional play, but it does feel like that when it's year after year after year. And it seems to be a little bit more specific that it happens to us every year. When Rocklin, Placer County are knowingly some of the fastest and largest growing places around the state and the country. So as we shift into the big topic that's been discussed tonight, and I know will continue to be discussed into June 2nd and 3rd, and not Saturday, since we're not doing any graduations that day. But the idea of what we're doing to help try to preserve our senior class's ability to go to graduation, the senior quarantine, as it's kind of becoming called. Well, I wholeheartedly understand the district, Superintendent Stock, the board's goal is to have as many seniors possible attend their graduation. I don't think anybody is in disagreement with that. And you know, I shared this with Superintendent Stock, and Mr. Flowers and I have spoken about this as well. It never fails that it's like the innocent bystander that did everything they could that gets excluded or impacted. And I think that's what a lot of parents are feeling with sports exclusions and classrooms exclusions and all the things going on right now. But the piece that I do have concern with is that, and I'll give Kaylee a lot of credit, she brought up some great points tonight, and Kaylee, I can't tell you how proud I am sitting here as like a former teacher is going like, look at that kid like totally fight with the superintendent, but respectfully, and fight's probably not the right word, but willing to push back, right? And I think we need more of that across the board. And I commend our board members from being that. And you guys push me, and I push you, and I actually enjoy that relationship because complacency is not a good place to be. But that decision around seniors obviously has a direct impact on seniors and their families. But there's also the direct impact on staff. And staff found out this information the same exact way as seniors and parents, and that's not okay. And I've talked to Superintendent Stock about this, and I commend him for, you know, he and I have tried to work on like if there's an opportunity to give each other a heads up, we're going to do that. And you know, for full disclosure, he was more than willing to say like, yeah, I think we need to do better on that one. Because there's a lot of, I mean, for lack of a better, we're going into a fifth teaching model for our senior teachers if now their seniors are choosing or being forced or whatever the opinion is on how this quarantine might work. They're going to have some version of a different school example going on in their classrooms, whether it's for 1 day, it's for 5 days. And I know a lot of the answer is the simple one, well, run it like you do with quarantine. Well, that's a good idea in like simple answer terms, but I don't typically quarantine, you know, 200 students at a time. It's like 2 or 3. You know, and there's also the reality that senior teachers that have pure senior classes, that's like a thing of the past. I think when we all went to school, that was pretty normal. Juniors went to class with juniors, seniors with seniors. And it's very few classes anymore, and especially this year, because we've had some opportunities open up for our juniors to do some advancement, to have a lot more blended classes. So, for example, I have a language arts teacher at Whitney High School that's really concerned that if all of his seniors in period 1 decide that they're going to stay home because their choice and their opportunity, he's going to have 1 junior in class. It's really, not only are those seniors obviously going to be disadvantaged trying to do the distant learning thing, the junior as well. I mean, could you imagine as a junior in high school sitting in class with your English teacher, whether you loved or hated them, or how awkward would that be with just you and that teacher? I was blessed. I went to school in Rocklin, so it would have been awesome. Actually, I really loved my language arts teachers and all for that matter. But I just really frustrated that we work labor management, we talk about appreciation, but we don't put the rubber in the road together as much as we need to still. And again, I know there's knowledge of this and there's intent to improve. And like I said, totally commend Superintendent Stock for being open about like, hey, well, you know, we're gonna work on that one. We'll get it next time. And just let's not forget that there's the student stakeholder at the top. I think we all know that that's the top priority when it comes to school in our classrooms. But there's a lot of dominoes in that. And sometimes we forget about some of those dominoes, whether it's intentional or not, to be included in the process, not just the result or the cleanup of the process. That's all I have.
Not ready. Superintendent Stock, can I ask for a clarification? Yeah, go that way. So, as a teacher, I know those pink slips that come are awful and a nightmare, and I have many friends who get them yearly because they have temporary jobs or whatever. And I always wish there was a better way to do it, and I too am always told that March deadline makes things so much more difficult. I know knowing earlier about retirements and resignations can help, but Superintendent Stock, will you please elaborate on the enrollment projections and how that works?
Absolutely. And I'll invite Deputy Superintendent Patterson to assist if I misstate or leave something out. We work hard every year to make our enrollment projections, and we begin doing that in December, work through January, and we actually bring in a consultant to help us work through that. And we do everything from looking at what is a kindergarten or the 5-year-old birth rate, so we can look at projecting kindergarten. We actually use what we call cohort survival model, which means how many students stay with us year after year. And then we take a look at new development. And for example, in Rocklin, there's a lot of new development, but some of it over by Bass Pro Shop and those areas are outside of our school district boundaries. They're actually in the Loomis and the Placer Union High School boundaries. And then we have other areas in Whitney Ranch that are developing, and what we're finding is that they're generating typically secondary students because they're a higher price point of the home, and they're not the typical starter home unless maybe you're from a Bay Area, Silicon Valley type job, where maybe $1 million home's your starter home. But so we take all that into account, and we look at the method. We look at that process year over year, so we can actually try to look at any variances. And so it's actually a very methodical process that we use to then work to build the budget and determine staffing needs. And it's something that we, beyond using the best methodology and science and data, we also actually work with our principals and sites to kind of say, your school, like Principal Holmes at Granite Oaks. He knows that school, that community. He kind of has a really good read on the trends and what's real, what's not. So we add that element in as well to come up with our projections. And it's a very thoughtful process because for many years we were a growth district and we needed to know how many do we need to hire. We want to have staff in place, get out early. And then unfortunately, we this year had a decline in enrollment of nearly over 776 students, I think, less than the previous year. And that's a real number. It's from CBEDS, which is the official accounting day in October that every school in the state reports its enrollment from the previous year. And so we have, we worked very hard this year to look at, and it was a very difficult year to project how many of those might return. And in working with that, we ended up at 235 is where we were planning our budget on returning more than we lost. And we also have a unique demographic that we track. For example, we have more seniors than we do kindergartners. So it means we have students leave us, and then the replacement has been a different number. It's almost an upside-down demographic. So we've been encouraging that. So we look all of that into account and then determine our staffing needs. When you're in growth, which for a decade or more we were, you are always adding staff, so there's not pink slips. When you have a decline of enrollment piece, then it generates the need to reduce the amount of staff needed to serve those students. And so that's where we ended up with recommending the 27.1 FTE reductions this year was based on a reduction in our enrollment, and the need to look at budget reductions is at the time we did not have one-time learning loss money and all those other pieces to look to apply. So the enrollment process is done in a very deliberate way, and we recognize the need to want to have it where we want. We also check it throughout the year. So we, in a process actually of working with our schools to go over staffing and look at what we might need. So if we have any transfers or needs, we can look at that. And so we do that. Like, for example, we added a TK class to a school, or we added an RSP position because we knew that, and that was just this week. So we're constantly monitoring it and adjusting the needs. And so the pink slips that were generated, or pink slips or the preliminary layoff notices, was a factor of having to meet the March 15th deadline and what we knew the enrollment needs were at that time. And so we work very hard to minimize any amount we need, but because of that legal deadline, it means that if we don't hit that, then we are obligated for that employment contract, and for every FTE or full-time equivalent position we're off, it's approximately, with all benefits and everything, $100,000, that we would be off. And so we want to, be as deliberate as we can and minimize the impact of layoffs. And as Travis mentioned the impact. I was laid off 3 times in a row from Sac City as a new teacher. I do understand personally what it's like to receive that, and I also understand what it's like to have to deliver that news to somebody you value and you worked hard to recruit and hire as well. So long answer, but it's a very long process that is not taken lightly, and it's not just like throwing a dart at the dartboard.
So can I follow that up with, between March 15th and now, what was the biggest change? How were we able to rescind those pink slips?
Yeah, great. It kind of steals my comments from us. So the good news is you won't have to hear this twice. Is that there were a couple of things that occurred. The biggest was that we had one-time funding come in, and then we were able to work, and this is a ton of credit to our Ed Services team. They worked really hard to develop a learning loss plan that we shared with the board in a study session in April that had us look to hire an intervention teacher for every elementary school, an ELA, a math intervention teacher for every middle and high school. So by applying the one-time monies to address learning loss, we were able to rescind many positions that way, which was great. And then the second pieces that occurred is we had retirements and resignations come in since the March 3rd board meeting where those were approved that allowed us to pull those off. And again, our human resources team did a phenomenal job of managing that process, and then the direction that I had given, and they did a great job executing, was as soon as we have a retirement or resignation, pull that, rescind that notice. Don't wait. And so that occurred as quick as we could. And we were very fortunate between resignations, retirements, and the one-time funding to be able to rescind all the layoff notices. However, if the one-time funding doesn't continue or we don't have enrollment come back, then that puts us in the unfortunate position. We hope that we do get the appropriate funding that children deserve and all the students come back, because we would want nothing more than to not have to do that again.
Thank you. And I think just looking at the numbers, 770 kids, when I think about that and put it in perspective, this is not a question, just a comment. That is almost 2 entire elementary schools worth of students that we've lost. That's a huge number of students. When you just hear the number 770, it's not as impactful as when you actually put it in perspective. That's almost 2 entire elementary schools worth of students.
I was just going to say, Trustee Zadoff and I sit on the committee with the city, and I have a little bit of information about this, but I would like it if Superintendent Stock would add some more. And that is, we have been talking a lot about enrollment and with the city manager there. Okay, tell us about what the projections are, and they have all sorts of information that we don't have at the schools, which has been really helpful. What else can you share about how you're gathering data and sharing data about enrollment?
Beyond working with the city to understand when new developments are coming online, and then what type of development, because for example, apartments generate less students than single-family homes, which doesn't sound logical, but there's clear data on that. So we work to understand when they're coming online, because just because they pull a permit and they begin, when are they slated to have that construction? So we really work with them to understand any changes. And we actually work with them to understand changes that might be 3, 4, 5 years out, because a lot of these developments take years to actually come online. So understanding where they're looking to zone single family or senior living, which might have been, we thought single family takes students away. So we work a lot with them. Craig Rouse, our Senior Director of Facilities, works with his counterparts at the city and regularly meets with them to understand those projections. And then the other piece we've done is, at board direction, is we actually reached out to all of our students, in elementary schools to ask a kind of verification of enrollment. Hey, you're enrolled, will you be coming back? So that we can early identify any changes or in the plans that parents have. And so that's another piece we're doing to just even work to verify so that we know, we don't assume you're coming back, but we know. As well. And then we also moved our whole online registration process to online. And so families no longer have to come into the school when it's convenient for us to be open, but they can do it online And we'll continue to have, summer hours at the district office for when the schools are closed if you need assistance and you just have trouble navigating it as well.
If it's okay to jump in one thought on that too. I was so excited because I heard all of these new developments coming to Rocklin the next 5 years. And so when we sat down, I said, hey, can you make it easy for me? A parent that knows nothing, show me where are these developments. And I was disappointed to see that 3 of those 5 developments are City of Rocklin land, but they're actually not within our USD boundaries. And so I fought and pushed for that, but unfortunately that's the way it is. And so for me, I was frustrated to say, listen, City of Rocklin still feels like it's growing, but yet, however, why in the out years, 2, 3, 4, 5, are we not projecting a ton of growth? And that actually made sense when they actually pulled out a map and drew it out for me and color-coded it for me. I wish I could blur those lines, but unfortunately, that is not something I have the ability to do, so I understand that frustration. I do want to say real quick, if that's okay, I really appreciate your comments, Travis, of wanting to walk together. I know I'm new here. I know I'm not the most refined. I know I don't know the correct processes and procedures, but as you were talking, I actually thought of an opportunity, and I want to throw it out to you. I think there's a few areas where there's a ton of intersection points, and one of those is this quarantining, right? And that may change June 15th, it may not, but as of right now, that's the guidance we have, that we have students, I just pulled up last week alone, 254 students they're home, healthy kids, due to exposure. And although I understand we can debate the guidance, we can debate all that, but the fact of the matter is, teachers, students, and parents, I think that's an area we're all concerned about. And so I wanted to offer up an opportunity. Maybe we can start by walking alongside each other with that. And I know I don't have a ton to bring to the table, but I want to offer to come out to campuses with you. So I know we have 20 days left. I don't want to wait until next year, though. I would love to offer to meet you. You name the campus. I'll be there. And I want to be able to hear from teachers. I want to be able to, I hear from parents. You're a phenomenal teacher rep. I'm elected by parents that are telling me, hey, what can we do better? How can I help? So I just want to throw that out there, that I think that's a great way we can walk alongside each other together, because that has a touch point for everybody, our teachers, our students, our parents. And so I want to throw that out to you. I'd love for you to take me up on that offer. You name a day, I'll listen to any teacher. I'll sit there. I have a pretty open schedule. But really, I want to make some movement in that area and help any way I can.
I just have one thing to answer one of your questions from earlier when you came up, talking about the testing and whether it's free or not. There actually is free testing at CVS and Walgreens, and one of which is like a drive-through self-testing, and it does not matter your insurance or not. So that's just something that if people wanted to know, there is free testing at CVS and Walgreens.
And this is not for you to necessarily, it's more rhetorical, Kaylee, so I apologize, but do we know if that qualifies? I think that's what might be helpful, is if we can provide something to families, is because there's different types of tests, right? Not everyone qualifies for the needs of whatever the thing is. So if we could provide this is a resource, whether it's free or I don't know, just something so people have somewhere to start from.
I think at both CVS and Walgreens, it's a drive-up PCR test. So and I think you have to make an appointment. I'm going from memory. I think you have to make an appointment, and then you bring that appointment registration and your insurance card, and I think it's just more reference.
Sure.
They do the nose thing, they get back, and then they send you that information. But it's all, I believe, 100% free. And I think it is a PCR test.
I think what he is saying, though, is my best friend just got on quarantine because of a stunt at Whitney High School. One of the things that would have been nice to be okay, well, you can't come, but to make sure you're actually negative, here's a few places where you can receive free testing. Instead of being okay, go get tested to double check. Just more clarification, I think is kind of what he's trying to say. Yeah.
Yep. All right, thank you.
Travis. We now welcome Chuck Haddock, CSEA President, to present the CSEA report. Is he online or?
Chuck indicated he would be unable to be here this evening.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Kaylee, thanks for being here with us tonight. Will you share your student board representative report?
Yes, all right. So Just a few things from our schools throughout the district. At Springview Middle School, their student leadership class is hosting a Spirit Week from May 17th through 21st. Their Spirit Days include wearing purple in support of GSSA, Jersey Day, Hawaii Day, Twin Day / dress as a staff member, Whiteout Day, and then they also are having talent shows each day at lunch. At Sunset Ranch, all of the Coyotes have been learning about how to use their toolbox tools. There are 12 tools that help students and adults meet their school-wide expectations, which are cooperate, safety, and never give up. They're looking forward to their May Fitness Challenge on May 7th, sponsored by their student council, and the end of year celebrations for their 6th grade students. At Twin Oaks Elementary School, their 2nd graders are holding their annual book parade last week, or they held it. Students created a float that was a mobile book report on wheels. The 2nd grade students paraded around the school site, and the classes cheered them on. At Antelope Creek, the Leadership Club just finished a school design t-shirt contest. 2 students were selected from many of the student drawings to have their design on the front and back of a new t-shirt. They also recently have been looking at how to spend the $4,000+ the community raised on maker supplies and STEM supplies. Most of these funds will help to refresh the choices in the maker space in the library. At Rocklin High School, they're busy figuring out how they plan to finish off the rest of this unexpected school year. The student government program just finished their ASB election and appointments for the upcoming school year in the fall and is working to bring positivity to the campus. They're planning small but meaningful events such as decorating the breezeway, putting up posters, painting windows, candy bombing classrooms, having lemonade distribution days at Plus while the hot weather continues to start, and so much more. They're working on honoring the senior class by getting free senior t-shirts distributed to students, advertising senior college decisions, planning a graduation, and so much more, all of which while still following the COVID-19 guidelines. The clubs on the RHS campus continue to think outside of the box while doing creative challenges for the students, one of which includes finding a single painted rock somewhere on the campus. Students around campus continue to enjoy their gradually normal lives while being involved in the sports and clubs on campus. And then this year was far from ideal for them, but they're working hard to finish it out strong and make the last of the year most memorable. And then, last but not least, but at Whitney High School, we're also scrambling to find new ways to celebrate our seniors in such a short period of time. Yesterday was our senior shirt day, where seniors wore their college shirt, signed a poster, took a picture, and got a free treat. We're also planning several events for the seniors' new last day of school, including a donut breakfast, card painting, and maybe a line dance at the lunch. With the unexpected senior quarantine and schedule changes that have occurred yet again, our leadership class is continuing to find new ways to be creative for the next 2 weeks and celebrate our seniors' last day. Next week is our Inclusive Week, and it's something new to our campus, but Inclusion Week at Whitney High School is to aid in creating an inclusive environment and to promote equality and compassion on our campus. We'll be discussing uncomfortable topics such as hate speech, sexual harassment, equality, and ableism. Our motto for the week is "We're all different, but we're all Wildcats," and it's important for us in order to create the unified campus we wish to have. Coming up, our ASB classes Pass the Torch event is going to happen, where we pass down our executive board decisions to the new presidents and commissioners. So we're looking forward to that. And we're just continuing strong with Maroon Fridays, morning giveaways, national days, and kind of fun posters to keep the campus excited. All of our events that would normally be within the next month and a half have now been moved to the next 2 weeks. So we're scrambling, but we're adjusting like we have been the entire school year. And that concludes my last student report, but I did get a few more questions. People are like texting me and emailing me. But going off of the quarantine, not necessarily the senior quarantine, but more so just quarantine in general, whether it's close contact traces and stuff like that. Newsflash, it's still not working. So I know a lot of us are really hoping that in the fall everything kind of goes back to normal more, but I really have a feeling there's still going to be close contact tracing and quarantine, which hurts me to say because I still have friends and siblings that are obviously going to be in this district, even though I'm leaving, they're not. And so I really feel like next year we have to find a solution. And I know it's already like the teachers can only do so much because they're already working their butts off trying to get the students that are actually in classes, and let alone trying to figure out Zoom calls and stuff like that for the students that are on quarantine. But next school year, and even for the next few weeks, we really just need to find some solutions on how to fix that, because as much as we all hope that the vaccines are there for students, whether they choose to do so or not, next school year I have a feeling there's still going to be a lot of quarantining, and so we really should find some solutions, because I know we are one of the only districts in our area with no Zooms, and so I know not everyone's going to get the vaccine, and so there's definitely going to be those quarantines that we're going to have to kind of try to figure out. Yeah. Oh, I also wanted to say thanks for Ms. Hupp, Ms. Price, and Mr. Stock for meeting with me and Jordan so last minute the other night when we got the information about the senior quarantine. It was like 11 o'clock at night, but you guys were there to answer our questions and meet with us last minute. So from me and Jordan, we do appreciate that from you guys. And yeah, as much as I hate that this is my last meeting, don't worry, the excitement is still going to be happening, because our next presidents are amazing, especially the one at Whitney High School, Anna Fishburne. She's basically like me, so prepare yourselves, because this is not stopping. And so, yeah, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee. Trustees, do you have any board comments I can share tonight?
Yes, I do. So I wish all the parents that spoke earlier hadn't left, because they probably didn't jump right on to the digital version when they did leave. But I wanted to share with parents who might be listening that even though we can't sit up here and say it, we share your frustrations so much. We don't like these CDPH guidelines any more than you do. We don't want to have to follow them, but we do have to follow them. And even though you are absolutely welcome every single time to come and share your frustrations, I encourage you to take them to places like CDPH, where the guidelines are being set, because as a government entity, we are required to follow those guidelines. We see what you see. We know what you know. We read what you read. And we have just as great of frustrations as you have. We are here because we want what's best for the kids. We're not here to enjoy doing the CDPH bidding, but we have to. We see the damage that's being done to the kids all over the country, all over the world, and we wish that wasn't happening just as much as you wish that wasn't happening. We have children in school, all of us do, and it's heartbreaking what we see our own children going through, and we, in our own way and with the small amount of power that we have, try to make as much of a difference as we can. And we will continue to try to make as much of a difference as we can. This is awful for everyone. It's awful for the kids, for the teachers, and for everyone who has to try and make it work. Our teachers have been going through crazy, crazy times this year, trying everything they can to make this work for the kids and to still bring joy. And all the things that Kaylee was just saying that's happening on the campuses, all of that is being done to try and bring joy and normalcy to the kids, despite all of these guidelines that we have to follow. We all want the kids to be healthy and thriving. More than anything, that's what we want. That's why we're here. And we talk and hope all the time that we can do any little thing to bring us closer and closer to normal. And we will continue to do everything we can to bring us closer and closer to normal. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Next, I want to say that because of what I just said about the teachers in Rocklin, who have been some of the most amazing teachers on the planet, have done so much in their classrooms. When I go around to the classrooms and I expect, because of what I've heard, to see teachers that look overwhelmed or teachers that look harried or exhausted, but that's not what I see, even though they might be. What I see are teachers who are putting their best face forward, who are doing everything they can to bring joy and fun and learning into the classrooms. And I see teachers that are smiling, that are working with children, and that are working hard, but with a smile. And they might go home exhausted and flop down on their couch because they've been asked to do 20 more new things this week. But they're doing it, and they are doing the very best they can. And I hope this week, Teacher Appreciation Week, that we remember that, and we remember all that they've been asked to do in these last 14 months, and we show them all the love that we can. And I know Travis said words are cheap. Action is where it's at. And I hope that as parents and families and community, that we are putting into action our appreciation for our teachers, because they sure have taken the brunt of this pandemic on their shoulders. And as families, I know we feel it. We have suffered, and we've watched our kids suffer, but I hope you don't forget those frontline teachers who have been there every day doing the very best they can for our kids. And I wanted to also say thanks to Kaylee and to Jordan for being incredibly awesome. And I wish it wasn't your last. I wish we had another year with you, but I'm glad that we have a great young lady coming up from Whitney to take your place, and that she has a great trainer. I'm looking forward to meeting her, and that's it for tonight.
All right, so, real quick, I think myself and Rick were at Victory High School for the California Healthy Kids Survey, and then myself and Julie were at Rocklin High School a couple of days. So that was just great to get the student feedback and get that voice and work through that. Hopefully we can continue to do that and get that true voice of the customer, of people that are on the ground and seeing how it all works together. Just following up, we all share in that frustration for the parents. Go back through the year. We started out in distance learning. We went to hybrid. We went to AM, PM. We went to 5-day. One of the main factors was to getting the kids back in class so that they can have that interpersonal impact with the teacher and really do that. And it is frustrating as all, that you get back to this point, and now because of a exposure or because somebody sits next to the wrong person in math class or history class, they're out for 14 days. And it is beyond frustrating, because I think all of us up here, the goal was to get kids back into class, do all that great stuff, and then all of a sudden you get handicapped or kneecapped. And so it is frustrating. I know, go through it. I hope we can work through some of these issues. I hope we can sit down and figure out where we can bend, where we can adjust, how we can make things work, because the goal is that, let's finish off the year. The goal was to have a live graduation, so someone coming from a parent of a senior that you did the drive-by, and that was as close as we got. The goal for this one was to have as live of a graduation as possible for your class, and I hope that when we get to the 2021-2022 school year, that they get all the events, all the activities, all the classroom experiences, the whole kit and caboodle for high school and junior high and grade school and all those stuff. So that is the goal. I know I'm not saying it's from a consolation standpoint. That was one of our goals, was so that you guys could physically walk across the stage. So we're trying. I know Marty and the principals and Superintendent Stock, they're working through it. They'll come up with ways of making some adjustments, figuring it out, but the goal was always to have you guys walk across that stage. So, and I think we're really close to being there. So that is a good one. So stay positive. I mean, I know it's consolation, but just know that was what our goal was to do, was to get you guys across there. So if I can, for all of us out there, and we can sit out there and watch you guys walk across the stage, truly it'll be tears coming out of the eyes, because it was like, yes, we got to this point. So
Thank you. I wanted to echo your beautiful words, Trustee Hupp, about this being a safe place where we do want to hear from our public and to practice what we preach with our children and our students, and that is civil discourse and respect. And so I appreciated your comments that we would want to continue to invite those conversations to happen. I also just wanted to add that happy Teacher Appreciation Week. Like Travis said, people are our biggest asset. It is where most of our money goes and our time and energy being concerned about our students and our teachers. And so I hope that our teachers feel as loved as they are. I know as a parent, besides me, there are many times when I felt like my kids spent more time with their teachers than they did with me, right? And that influence is huge, and that example is huge. And there weren't many parent-teacher conferences that I wasn't emotional in gratitude for the things that teachers do and have done for my children individually. And I know that that is the case for all of us. So that's it. Have a good week and feel loved.
I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to really say thank you. And I know we say actions mean much more than words, but I think words are important. And I think not only our teachers, but our community needs to hear their board appreciate their teachers. Not just because it's Teacher Staff Appreciation Week, but because something I echo out in the community often when I'm meeting with individuals is here at Rocklin Unified, at every change, at every turn, our teachers showed up. They were here, they were in the classroom, they were with our students, working with the many different changes that, to be honest, at many times we put on them. And so it would be absolutely ridiculous for us not to carve out time in a board meeting to say thank you. And I wish I could say a personal thank you and a handshake or a COVID-friendly hug, knuckles, high five, air hug, to every single teacher, because I mean that. When we sit up here, I know it may feel at times that we're just talking policy. And honestly, that frustrates me. That's not my personality. I want to be boots on the ground. But I'm so appreciative of the teachers that show up day in and day out. I know we would not do what we are able to do without our teachers. And so it is our teachers, it is our staff that makes our USD excellent. And I love that I get to brag and I get to tote on that, but I don't take it lightly that is not because of any decision I make up here. It is because we have people that are showing up day in and day out. And so I want to make sure not only our teachers, but our parents, our community, our city officials, that they hear us appreciate our teachers, because our teachers deserve appreciation from their entire city. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Also, I feel it is important. There is angst in our community right now. COVID is not new. Our students have been back in school for 9 months, and I so appreciate that. But we also have new data. That decisions that were made 9 months ago, decisions that were made even 6 months ago, were great decisions at that time with that data that was given, but we have new data now. And I do think that there is a responsibility on us as a board to take that into consideration. And I understand, and I thank you again, Superintendent Stock. I think I apologized multiple times, even via email, for the lengthy meeting yesterday. But I do think there's a responsibility on us. We were elected to represent our local community. And if I'm feeling frustrated at times, saying, well, there's not much I can do about it, I wonder if there's a better way to look at this. And so I want to encourage my fellow trustees, encourage the community out there. I am not hesitating to reach out to every local assemblyman I know, every local city council member, every senator that I know or have a relationship with, to ask help. Because if we are in the same place come August, I question that is for the health and safety of our students. And so I realize the risk that I take by even voicing any opinion on this topic. I realize our obligation to follow CDPH guidance, and I appreciate CDPH. However, for our guidance on quarantines to not have been updated in several months, that's a concern to me. Our data points throughout Placer County is doing very, very well. And we were elected by our local families to make decisions based off of the data points we have here, not based off of data points throughout the entire state, throughout the entire nation. And so, again, I wanted to share, I not only hear the angst, I now feel the angst. And I think it is time that we start to at least look at and entertain conversations of what if things do look the same, guidance stays the same. Between now, June, July, I do feel we have a responsibility to our community to ask the hard questions, and not out of, not to push back on guidance that is proven to show health and safety, but to push back on guidance that we have data points showing that our students are safe, our students are healthy. And so I want to encourage you I would love to meet with any of you. I know one-on-one, gotta love the Brown Act. But also any city leaders that are listening, any state leaders that are listening. I think it's time that our school boards come together. I'm reaching out to other local school boards as well. I think it's time that we start to question some of the guidance that we are receiving.
Superintendent Stock?
I've spoken a lot already.
So we'll go to the 10.0, or 10.1, sorry, a consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion followed by a roll call vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the Board of Trustees, audience, or staff requests specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Agenda items removed will be voted upon following the motion to approve the consent calendar. Do any board members wish to remove an item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Rochelle,
Second.
seconded by Julie. Brenda, will you please call the roll?
Haley Hamilton,
Yes.
Julie Hupp,
Yes.
Rick Miller,
Yes.
Rochelle Price,
Yes?
Tiffany Stadhoff,
Yes.
Derek Counter.
Yes, motion passes. All right. Now on to item 11.1, action on California School Employee Association tentative agreement for 2020-2021 school year. Dr. Limoges.
Thank you, President Counter. Good evening, trustees, Superintendent Stock, Ms. Brenda. Tonight I'm presenting to you asking for a recommended motion to take action on the tentative agreement with the California School Employees Association. Based upon the tentative agreement signed by the district and California School Employees Association, CSEA, dated April 16th, the district and CSEA, chapter number 773, mutually entered into a tentative agreement for 2020-21. Just to kind of provide you an overview, we really kind of revised some language in regards to transportation and bidding, had some information in regards to salary and other elements of that. And so this evening, Chuck kind of previewed this the last time. We're just getting it to you now formally, is I'm asking, recommending for a motion to approve.
All right. Are there any board comments or questions? All right. Are there any public comments from the audience with regard to this? Do we have any written public comments?
There are no written public comments. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the California School Employee Association tentative agreement for 2020-2021 school year?
So moved.
Moved by Tiffany,
Second.
second by Julie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? No abstentions? I got an aye also. All right, motion passes. All right. Now, item 12.1, update on work progress of the Equity in Your Local History Community. Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, trustees. I don't see my presentation, so it's going to take me a minute to pull that up. Okay. I'm ready when you're ready. Apologize for the delay. Good to see you all again. I am excited to be here tonight to bring back to you an update from the Equity and Local History Committee. If you recall, about 10 months ago, last July, we had a student come forward, Diego Liebman, who shared his experience as a student at Whitney High School, taking history, social studies classes, and his disappointment that more local history wasn't represented, including the voices of diverse people that lived in the area. We formed a committee based on that, and we've been meeting throughout the year, despite the pandemic, and we have some great stuff to share with you tonight. I'm excited about. So tonight, here with me is Darren Baham. He'll be presenting. He's the teacher at Victory High School. Diego Liebman is here, our student from Whitney High School, our former student. And our two coaches, Amanda Bannister, our secondary instructional coach, and Ann Felice, our elementary instructional coach. And I am going to turn it over to Diego, who's going to reshare that vision for the committee. Thanks, Diego, and thanks for your patience.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to finally be here with you in person and also to be finally meeting some of my colleagues after almost a year of hard work. As you know, this committee was formed during the 2020 to 2021 school year to provide material support for teachers to broaden the scope of their social studies curriculum and make recommendations for a learning artifact at Whitney High School. Our efforts have focused on compiling and vetting primary sources and lesson plans in state and local history, with a particular emphasis on Asian American and Pacific Islander history, Native American history, and African American history. We believe this work is important because by contextualizing Rocklin history within our broader state and national narratives, we can give the tools for students to, one, better understand Rocklin, but also to grapple with historical legacies and form the basis of an informed and engaged citizenry. Of equal importance is that our increasingly diverse student body is duly represented in their studies, and that we're increasing cultural literacy and inclusivity in RUSD classrooms, which will have a positive carryover effect on student life as a whole. And last, I want to thank the district for moving forward on this very important work, everybody involved. And with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Bill McDonald.
Thank you, Diego. Appreciate it. A quick reminder of the purpose and objectives we set last summer around this committee. We wanted to review relevant curricula in grades TK through 12 to see where we might actually be able to plug in some local history. We wanted to start to gather information and input on the history of Rocklin from local people and experts. We wanted to seek expertise from our local history social science teachers and specialists on what they're teaching now and what they're using now. And then a big goal was to identify supplemental lessons, activities, curricula to promote multiple diverse viewpoints from local history. We were going to consider the creation of a Joel Parker Whitney learning artifact at Whitney High School. And then we were going to come back with recommendations for curricular additions and a learning artifact. I am going to introduce, again, Darren Baham, who's going to talk about our committee members and timeline. Come on up, Darren.
Good evening, trustees, President Counter, Superintendent Stock. My name is Darren Baham. I have two children that attend Rocklin Unified School Districts, one at Cobblestone and one at Granite Oaks. Is about to be a freshman at Rocklin High School. I'm a 7-year classroom teacher from Victory High School, and I had the high honor of not only being a member of this committee, but also served as its co-chair alongside Diego Liebman. At this point in the presentation, I'd like to acknowledge all the volunteers who helped make this committee possible, starting, of course, with our dedicated and talented Rocklin Unified staff members. Specifically, Ann Felice and Amanda Bannister, our wonderful instructional coaches who have been instrumental in putting together resources to offer up to our social science teachers. They will demonstrate their part later in the presentation. However, as you can see from the slide deck, this committee, like its vision and purpose, was diverse in that many of its members were various stakeholders from within the community and not just limited to staff members. Against the slide just a little too quickly. The most significant was the contributions of Stacy Greer and Cecilia Sue, who are both members of the UC Davis History Departments and are currently working on the UC Davis History Project. The History Project at UC Davis provides professional learning for teachers in the greater Sacramento region by bringing together scholars and teachers to improve history, social science education, and develop an informed, engaged, and literate citizenry. It is the hope of this committee that the partnership formed during this past year with the History Project will continue into the future. We believe it will only be a benefit to RUSD social science departments. We would also like to acknowledge the partnership formed with the Rocklin Historical Society. They have showed a strong desire to improve the representation of local history and wish to continue their partnership with the committee so that they can bring a more diverse perspective to the history of Rocklin, and they want to continue to be an integral and influential part of the learning process for RUSD students through their extremely popular field trips. Lastly, a special thank you to Diego Liebman, co-chair of the committee and alum of Whitney High School, for his influence and dedication to this committee. Diego has worked tirelessly to network with local groups and organizations that can help the committee make sure that the work being done is vetted and has merit. His passion for the subject in our community was crucial in getting this committee off the ground and achieving its goal. Moving to the next slide, you will see that this was a year-long process. Despite obstacles like asking people to volunteer their personal time and navigating the pandemic to ensure the safety of all members, it was no small feat what was accomplished. This year started back in the summer, calling for volunteers, and once a list was created of these individuals, the first meeting was called for in October by Dr. McDonald. There, introductions were made, goals were set, and subcommittees were formed. Month by month, the committee either met at the subcommittee level or at the full committee level based on the direction and the needs of the committee. By April of this year, we reached our goals we set out to achieve. The first was organizing resources and lesson plans found by the subcommittees and integrating them into current RUSD curriculum. The hope would be that we could provide something tangible for RUSD social science teachers to be able to use in their daily lessons. The second was to begin the task of our first learning artifact. This idea would be a public display of the history of Rocklin within a campus space that would offer up multiple views of our local history. Whitney High School has been designated by the committee as the first site to receive such an item. Currently, there is a steering committee that is going to collaborate on a mural to be displayed on campus with board approval. More information on this will be provided later in the presentation. In all, the committee considered this year-long work a success, and maybe its members are anxious to keep the movement created going into the coming year. Thank you very much for your time, and at this time, I would like to turn the floor over to Ann and Amanda to present on their findings on the local history resource crosswalks.
Good evening, President Stock, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock, I'm sorry, President Counter. I apologize. Good evening, President Counter, Board of Trustees, and Superintendent Stock. Ann and I are happy to share the curricular resources that this committee developed. We created the crosswalk documents that are displayed here for grades 3, 4, 8, and 11. And these grade levels were selected as the third grade standards, as the third grade standards cover local history, fourth grade standards cover California history, and the 8th and 11th grade standards cover United States history. So these are natural grade levels in which to provide local connections. Moving from left to right on our crosswalks, you'll see that we have the history social science framework connected to the unit and adopted curriculum, and then all the way over on the right, a place for the potential local history supplements. Tonight we're displaying grade level 3, a portion of grade level 3, and we've linked grade levels 3, 4, 8, and 11. The intention of the crosswalk is to provide teachers an easy-to-use document so they can integrate these local resources into their current curriculum. The Equity and Local History Committee provided over 70 resources, including primary and secondary sources, for us to consider as supplements. And through exploring these resources, we actually learned some really interesting facts about our community. So for example, just across the street from the district office, right out here, there's a plaque recognizing the Chinese who played a significant role in the development of Rocklin. And in fact, there was a Chinatown near the original railroad roundhouse on Front Street, just down the street from the district office, approximately Rocklin Road and Front Street. And additionally, in the nearby city of Ophir, there was a fugitive slave case in the 1850s. So we found it very interesting, and we think that our students will also find interest in those local history connections. We curated the resources that the committee provided for local connection as well as current grade level content connection. And while they provided many more resources that we didn't identify a local connection for, we still do hope to find an opportunity to share those resources with teachers in another way. The crosswalks also contain links to primary source analysis tools and a sample lesson plan in order to support teachers with using the documents and resources. This slide demonstrates two sample lesson plans, one for 3rd and one for 11th. And we believe that by incorporating the local history with diverse perspectives, that students will benefit from seeing a more inclusive picture of history. And we also believe that these local connections will make history even more engaging for students. I'm going to talk about the example in 11th grade on the right there. So while studying World War II and Japanese internment, teachers can make a local connection by embedding the local resource, such as the book, The Japan Towns of Placer County, that was locally produced. Or they could include the primary source document, Local Instructions to All Persons of Japanese Ancestry, or information about the Sasaki family, for which Sasaki Park near Sierra College is named. And in the sample over on the far right, that lesson includes a multimedia text set that a teacher could choose to use that has the 6 local history resources to supplement their curriculum when they're teaching Japanese internment during World War II.
Good evening, President Counter, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Stock. Another example that we have up here is a 3rd grade example, and when studying California Indian groups, teachers can make a local connection by including information about the Nisenan tribe. There is evidence that Rocklin was a center of Nisenan life. Hundreds of grinding sites have been identified near streams all throughout Rocklin, including 62 mortar sites at Johnson Springview Park. Teachers can infuse this information from the resources into their current lessons or create an additional lesson on the Nisenan tribe when teaching about the mountain and valley people in the studies weekly lessons. Currently, we have identified 2 to 3 opportunities to integrate local historical connection into curriculum at each grade level. While we have had some input from current classroom teachers, our next step is to have teachers review the resources and make adjustments accordingly. Following input from grade level experts, we will finalize first drafts of the crosswalks and develop a plan for sharing these local history resources with teachers. These are living documents that we hope to continue to develop with committee and teacher input. And now we're going to turn the time back to Dr. McDonald.
Thank you, Ann and Amanda. Appreciate it. The final piece is what you've heard us mention is this Rocklin learning artifact. So we convened a subcommittee to examine this idea of this Joel Parker Whitney learning artifact back in March. After some discussion about what this is going to look like, we started with like the basic display case with like the little pieces of paper in it that you see at elementary schools, and we came up with much better ideas than that, thankfully. That's why it's great to have a group of smart people working with you. And the committee kind of came to this idea of a mural. A mural at Whitney High School would be a good direction where we could represent some of the diverse histories in Rocklin. We knew it was important to include Whitney High School staff, and again, it's been hard to recruit for these committees during this time, but we were able to get some great Whitney staff on board and administrators, and they liked the mural idea. They liked the idea of representing multiple diverse groups, and we agreed that we were going to come back together after recruiting members of local groups that could represent different peoples. And we thought this was important because the last thing we wanted to do is potentially create a mural that is stereotypical or doesn't represent the local people. So we wanted that input, and we wanted to have them help us develop criteria. So when we go ahead and put this idea out, is like a request for proposal, here's some things that we're thinking about in the mural that should be represented, images, landmarks, symbols. We would really like this work to be done by students at our high school. That's really important. We had Miss Lum from Whitney High School there, and we kind of pulled her in a little bit, I think. If you're listening, Miss Lum, thank you. And we'd like to recruit more art teachers at the high schools to participate. We see this as a great opportunity for students to come together and do some positive work, students and staff in the community, and we think it could have a real positive impact in general. We have a timeline for this that's still 1 or 2 years out, so this is just beginning, but we would love to see this happen. These are some examples we looked at the committee. These are actually local examples of murals, and several of these are from high schools who've done this work already. And just showing, the color and the vibrancies, the different representations of history and people. So these are not the murals we're gonna do, but these are an inspiration to us as we move this committee forward. Future actions, there's still work to be done. You've heard a couple times, so we would like to continue with this committee and continue recruiting. We need to do additional research into local Latino and Black history. We haven't found a lot of resources, but we know they're out there, so we're going to continue that. We've been working closely with the UC History Project. These are some really smart, good people who have been a huge asset to us. We would love to partner with them to do professional development and dig deeper. They actually can help us do local research and develop lessons, so we're interested in that. We've also started to form an initial partnership with the United Auburn Indian community, and that's very exciting because in our initial conversations, they're interested in having students come and teach us local history from their perspective and share about natural resources and have some shared learning experiences between our two communities, which is amazing. And so we're going to meet again this Friday to continue that conversation. Finally, as we wrap up, I want to acknowledge Diego, who kind of started all this again. Appreciate him and all his work. I know he's heading off to college this year, but we hope he'll stay involved. And then the ever-present Tawana Armstrong, who is on every district committee, but was also on this one and did a lot of great work and is always a wonderful voice to have in the room. So thank you.
All right. Thank you. Oh, okay.
I just have to say a appreciation for looking at the local history resource crosswalks. This is no small feat. This is a lot of information and a lot of work vetting these resources. And so thank you, Diego. Thank you to the entire team. Thank you for taking the time to try to find representatives from our community in a crazy time like 2020, 2021. I lived in Rocklin as a child, and it wasn't until this year that I joined Leadership Rocklin, if I'm honest, that I actually got to walk some of the historical artifacts and landmarks here in the city of Rocklin, and so some of which you mentioned today. And honestly, if you had told me about them 2 years ago, I probably wouldn't have known. And so I so appreciate the work that goes into this, and I think it's powerful for our students to see firsthand what's around them, where they're living. So I so appreciate that. And I also think parents might get really excited about this. And is there a way for them to either, and I'm sure it may already be in the planning, but for parents to either have access to these resource crosswalks as well, or a parent viewing, so they could even maybe take their kids to some of these places as they learn about them in school?
Thank you, and great question. Yes, as the coaches said, we're still in that development phase where we really want to get input from our teachers and have their buy-in to these and kind of do that professional development. But I think down the road, there's absolutely an opportunity that we want to share these resources and make people aware of the opportunities in the community to know local history. Your reaction has been, was actually the teachers at Whitney High School who we brought into the committee. We shared some of these initial things, and they said the same thing, like, oh my gosh, are you, really? And so, yeah, it's good for all of us to know this, so absolutely parents can be brought into this and this material can be shared at some point in the process.
Great, and I even think before the material's finalized, it could be great because there may be parents that have lived here forever. I'm even thinking of our own mayor, not to put her on the spot. I know she shared about some of these having lived here younger, so I think that could be a great opportunity to have them give some perspective too on some of the resources. Thank you.
Yep.
Just to add to that real quick, an idea that we had floated around, kind of to your point, is creating a presentation, just going over what we found in all the local, local landmarks. And I think that's something that we could probably put together before that work is done. You could share it with parents, students, whoever else.
Thank you for all of your work on this. The only thing I was going to add is it's always for me like a flashing light when you see the word grant. And so on page 10, it looks like there is a special arts grant from Vans that's given. Maybe have that on your radar. Maybe we can, it looks like, you know, who knows how often they give it, but let's at least keep that on our radar for funding.
I think this is amazing that we can weave in local history to the current curriculum. I mean, just any of us that have grown up in the area, you do the Sutter's Fort and where gold was discovered and all that kind of stuff, and the folks in Southern California do the missions, and you see different, you know, pieces of it. So neat that we can tie, you know, our little city here and how it fits into California history, Placer County history, et cetera. I think that's amazing. So thank you. And yeah, if we can, I hope to utilize any and all students in, you know, from art, from graphics into that, because I think that's a great thing that they could offer, help out, and then that's something that they leave their mark on the school that, hey, I was part of that, I drew that up, I designed it, I painted, whatever. Just something neat to walk away then with that. So keep that one up, thank you. And thank you guys for the work. Like, this is, it's cool that we can weave this in. That's really, that's a neat thing.
I just want to add my voice of thanks. This was great work, and I appreciate it. The crosswalk was pretty amazing. I actually lost a whole afternoon sort of going through everything and really enjoyed it, and as with everyone, learned a lot. And so, we talked about the COVID frustration, Diego, and the frustration of where we are, and we haven't made progress. But there are tangible ways of showing that we've made progress, and one is that you're here in front of me today. I mean, I've heard you so much above me, and so it's exciting to actually have you in the room, and I think it's a testament to progress. And so I also want to particularly, I've thanked you over Zoom, but thank you for your leadership. We're here today because of you. And I also want to call out that part of the reason that you took this on is to have an equity lens to what we're looking to locally, and to understand that there was a complex list of lots of people who made up what makes Rocklin today, and that we need to acknowledge everyone who played a role in this. And we wouldn't be talking about that, we wouldn't be engaging in that if it hadn't been for your leadership. So deeply, deeply appreciate you being here and everything you did.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say from a teacher's perspective, this is so incredible. When you are teaching about, and I'm actually a third grade teacher, when you're teaching about your local history, to have it come alive right in your own community. I mean, I teach about the Maidu Indians up in Auburn, and we go on field trips to the Maidu Museum and that kind of thing, but to have it so close to home where you can actually go walk the places where people walked. I mean, obviously people in history walked, but to learn about them and to know how they helped build your very own community is incredible. I mean, there's so much depth to what you're bringing to local education. It's really awesome. Thank you for your hard work.
I just, as a history teacher, I have to, and I also was a member of the UC Davis History Project as a history teacher, and so I have to say I just am very excited to see that we're really reaching out to have every student in every community see themselves in our history, and to really give an opportunity to make sure that that occurs in the most local way possible. And this is something that, again, I just can't be acknowledged enough. It would have been so easy to say, we'll do this after COVID. We'll do it next year. And we didn't. We said it's important, and we're going to do it now. And I think that, that it should just not be underestimated, because these are the same people that did a lot of amazing things. And, oh, by the way, here's something that we think is important, and can you add that to your plate? And every one of these folks added this, but it was important. And so I really commend the board for stressing the importance, and I commend everyone involved for making it happen and actually delivering, really on time, this type of work. And to see the excitement is just genuinely appreciated. And as a history teacher, I cannot wait to get even more into the resources. And I'm going to go find that plaque. I haven't found it yet.
I'll just add real quick for Diego. It's actually so exciting to see how far this has come, because as a student who's also kind of tried to lead these big projects, it's not easy at all. And so it's just really fun to see how far this has come, and you're definitely making Whitney High School proud, even though you graduated early, which is also another huge accomplishment, and I didn't know you did, but congrats, and this is just exciting, and it's fun to see where this will go, so good job, guys.
Do we have any public comment? All right. 13.1, trustees, do you have any items that would be placed on a pending agenda? All right. Got that? No pending agenda items? All right. So the May 5th, 2021 board meeting is now adjourned.